Chapter 45. Yi Fan and Pang Bo suppressed Han Feiyu, and everyone's jaws dropped to the ground. In everyone's eyes, these two 11 or 12-year-old youths were a mess. They clearly did not cultivate the source of divine power, but they beat up an elder's grandson until he was stunned and almost crippled. Many people watching were dumbfounded. These two are too ferocious. They're only 11 or 12 years old, how can they have such divine power? Fighting with their bare hands, suppressing Han Feiyu, and even knocking away the greenwood treasure seal that Elder Han gave him. This is unbelievable. The crowd was in a heated discussion. At this moment, even the disciples who joined the sect earlier and had a high cultivation base were paying attention to the situation here. They were in an uproar when they heard that Elder Han's grandson Han Feiyu was beaten up. Those two teenagers look so delicate, but why are they so ferocious? You really can't judge a book by its cover. Yi Fan and Pang Bo had been keeping a low profile, but now they had become the focus of everyone's attention. The other disciples at the bottom of the cliffs also gathered around after hearing about the situation, wanting to see these two ferocious people. What? That Pang Bo is an immortal seedling? Everyone was shocked when they heard the news. The disciples who joined the sect earlier all knew what the immortal seedlings meant. They were the future inheritors and hope of the Spirit Ruins Grotto Heaven. They were influential figures who could lead the sect to glory. He's an immortal seedling. No wonder he's so brave and talented. Han Feiyu has kicked an iron plate this time. He won't be able to take revenge even if he wants to in the future. He can only swallow his anger. Now, everyone looked at Pang Bo with complicated expressions. They couldn't tell what they were feeling. Many people quickly made up their minds to befriend Pang Bo in the future. At this moment, Yi Fan and Pang Bo did not stay idle. They ignored the gazes of the crowd and picked up the small jade bottles on the ground one by one. There were more than 30 bottles of the 100 Herbs liquid. The few youths who started the fight were stabbed into the mud by Yi Fan and Pang Bo, but the 100 Herbs liquid that they had snatched were all left behind. New disciples could only receive one bottle of the 100 Herbs potion every 3 months. One could imagine how precious it was. Now that the two of them had received more than 30 bottles, the people around them were envious. Those guys who managed to form divine inscriptions should have even better things on them. Yi Fan and Pang Bo weren't satisfied. They turned their gazes towards the youths who were stuck in the mud. These youths had all cultivated divine energy and had nurtured a divine imprint in the sea of bitterness. Their cultivation bases were a level higher than ordinary disciples, and they were definitely richer than those youths. The two of them looked at each other and began to pull out the scallions. They pulled the 5 youths out of the quagmire and searched their bodies one by one. Why do they only have a few bottles of 100 Herbs potion with them? Yi Fan and Pang Bo searched their bodies and found that each of them only had 5 bottles of 100 Herbs potion, which was less than what they had obtained earlier. Their dissatisfied expressions made the surrounding people speechless. Today, every cliff had distributed the 100 Herbs potion. The amount of 100 Herbs potion they received was naturally different according to the level of their cultivation bases. It was already not bad for these youths to receive 5 bottles each. Li Fei and Wang Jing hadn't left yet and saw everything. They looked at each other and didn't know what to say. They had never seen such an unconventional disciple. At this moment, the youths were lying on the ground like a pile of mud. They still didn't have the strength to get up. After Yi Fan and Pang Bo finished searching them, they looked at each other and threw them back into the lotus pond again. However, this time they didn't fall headfirst as they were afraid that they might die if they stayed for too long. After that, they also pulled out the youths and threw them into the muddy water. Finally, Yi Fan and Pang Bo came to the front of the greenwood treasure seal and tried to push it. They felt that it was too heavy. Even though they could lift it up, they couldn't use it to fight. After kicking it twice, they left. Everyone was dumbstruck. These two people were simply like locusts. They didn't panic in public and they actually wanted to take the greenwood seal away after they finished robbing all of them. Senior Li Fei, Senior Wang Jing, thank you so much. Yi Fan and Pang Bo shouted from afar after squeezing out of the crowd. They then quickly left. Han Feiyu's face was ashen. He was furious. He didn't even put away the greenwood treasure seal. He directly walked toward a valley in the depths of the Spirit Ruin Wonderland. The valley was very spacious. There were medicinal fields everywhere. Strange flowers and herbs were planted everywhere. The medicinal fragrance and spiritual energy were dense. The whole valley was filled with rare medicinal herbs. There were no other plants. When all kinds of spirit herbs grew, the medicinal fragrance and plant essence overflowed, turning this place into a spiritual valley. On the way, some medicinal disciples bowed to Han Feiyu, but he ignored them. With a gloomy face, he directly went to a cave in the depths of the valley. The medicinal fragrance here was even stronger. In front of the cave, there were 18 medicinal cauldrons that were half the height of a person. It was unknown what kind of metal they were made of, but they looked simple and heavy. How did you end up like this? An old voice came from the depths of the cave. The person didn't come out, but it seemed like he could sense everything outside. One of those two people is a seedling immortal. Han Feiyu stood outside the cave. He gnashed his teeth and reported to his great-uncle in detail. If I knew that they had eaten the divine medicine earlier, I only needed to make them release some blood. Unfortunately, I received the news too late. Now there is a bit of trouble. After saying this, Elder Han became silent. After a long time he spoke again. That seedling immortal. Don't provoke him. As for the other one, let's wait and see. Great-uncle, you mean? Han Feiyu's eyes suddenly shot out two rays of light. What I mean is, you don't need to do anything right now. Cultivate properly first. After saying that, there was no more sound in the cave. It was completely silent. Yes. Han Feiyu didn't want to give up, but he didn't dare to go against Elder Han. He bowed and left. Yi Fan and Pang Bo returned to their residence and began to count their spoils. In total, they got 66 bottles of 100 grasses liquid. This was definitely a windfall. The surname Han really is a good person. The two of them praised. After sorting out the bottles, Yi Fan and Pang Bo slowly calmed down. Even though they defeated Han Feiyu's group today, they felt a strong sense of danger. With just a strong body and the power of an elephant, they might be able to dominate among mortals. However, against people with divine powers and mysterious techniques, they lacked flexibility and were no match for them. Right now they had to cultivate, open up the sea of bitterness, connect with the wheel of life, and let the heavenly spring flow. Only when the source of divine power was under their control could they truly become stronger. That was the foundation of a cultivator. After this sense of danger, the two of them desperately wanted to become stronger and cultivate even harder. In the next 2 days, Pang Bo drank 6 bottles of 100 grasses liquid. Together with the mysterious techniques recorded in the Tao Canon, his sea of bitterness finally grew. However, after drinking the 7th bottle, he suddenly felt something was wrong. His sea of bitterness was in chaos, and he felt like he was being stabbed by needles. Oh no, more haste, less speed. The imparting elder said that the new disciples can't handle too much 100 grasses liquid. 1 bottle every 3 months, it makes sense. Pang Bo's forehead was covered in sweat as he struggled to hold on. I'll go find someone. Yi Fan was about to push open the door and leave. No need, I can grit my teeth and endure it. Pang Bo insisted. He endured for half a day before the pain slowly subsided. He smiled bitterly. It seems like we can only eat 1 mouthful at a time and walk 1 step at a time. Normal disciples drink 1 bottle every 3 months, but I, an immortal seedling, drank 6 to 7 bottles in 2 days. It's already heaven-defying. At this point, Pang Bo showed a strange expression and said, You also drank 6 to 7 bottles, but why don't you feel any pain? Instead, you're getting more and more energetic. What's going on? Isn't there any ripple in the sea of bitterness? Yi Fan shook his head. His wheel of life and the sea of bitterness were still silent without any ripples. The only benefit of cultivating the Tao Canon was that his mental chi was getting more and more energetic. There's nothing strange after drinking 6 to 7 bottles. It seems like it's still within the acceptable range. Yi Fan continued to increase the amount. Who knows, there might be some miraculous effect. How can I do that? It's a waste to drink more 100 grasses liquid with my physique. Instead of that, it's better to leave it for you to have a breakthrough. You'll be able to reach a higher realm as soon as possible. Don't worry. Since they've confirmed that I'm an immortal seedling, they'll definitely give me more 100 grasses liquid in the future. Elder Wu Qingfeng has said more than once that a cultivator's state of mind is very important. He clearly knows of my potential, but he doesn't want me to have a sense of superiority. He sent me to the Cliff of Spirit Ruins to learn. This is enough to show the problem. The reason why he's doing this now is definitely to sharpen my mind. I believe that everything will change in the future, and there will definitely be no shortage of 100 grasses liquid. Pang Bo's words were very reasonable. Yi Fan no longer refused. There was no need for formalities between the two, and they began to drink large amounts of 100 grasses liquid. 1 bottle, 2 bottles, 3 bottles. Yi Fan silently circulated the mysterious technique recorded in the Tao Canon. At this moment he didn't feel anything strange, but a strange change was slowly happening in his body. Chapter 46. In this day Yi Fan drank a total of 13 bottles of 100 herbs liquid. Adding the 7 bottles he drank 2 days ago, he had now drunk 20 bottles. Apart from the boiling essence in his blood, he still didn't feel any discomfort. Seeing him drink like this, even Pang Bo felt afraid and said, "Let's stop first. I'm scared now and my eyelids can't stop trembling. I'm afraid you'll explode with a bang and I won't be able to see you again. You jinx, what nonsense are you saying?" At this point, Yi Fan carefully sensed the condition of the Sea of Misery and said, "I seem to have a strange feeling." "What, it's effective?" Pang Bo instantly revealed a joyful expression and said, "I'll go find Elder Wu Qingfeng to help you guide it." Yi Fan stopped him and said, "Don't go, I'll slowly sense it myself." Elder Wu Qingfeng had once said that Yi Fan's physique could only rely on himself, and outsiders couldn't help guide it at all. He had once said that if an ordinary person's wheel of life was a piece of soil, then Yi Fan's theory of life was a piece of godly metal. After planting a seed in the soil with careful care and cultivation, the seed would definitely germinate and show vitality. And no matter how much godly metal you put in, even if you planted a celestial root, it would be difficult to grow. In this kind of situation, there would only be a glimmer of hope for vitality if the inside of the godly metal transformed. Otherwise, no matter how good the conditions provided by the outside world, it would be difficult to change anything. Yi Fan had a strange feeling and was very excited. His physique was known as the Saint Physique in the primordial age, but now it was regarded as a useless physique, and he was very unwilling to accept it. Now that he had a special feeling, he was naturally very excited. At this moment, Pang Bo's eyes almost popped out. Seeing Yi Fan gulping down bottle after bottle as if he was drinking water, his heart was in his throat. "I say, let's take it easy. Looking at you like this, I'm really scared. Let's drink the rest tomorrow, okay? I'm really scared." When Pang Bo said this, there was already a pile of empty jade bottles on the ground. Yi Fan had already drunk 40 bottles of 100 herbs liquid. "Don't worry, I feel great right now. The boiling essence energy in my blood has completely calmed down, and the position of the wheel of life is fluctuating violently." After saying that, Yi Fan continued to drink the 100 herbs potion. Eventually there was nothing left in front of him. Other than the 7 bottles that Pang Bo drank, the remaining 59 bottles were all consumed by Yi Fan. "How do you feel?" Pang Bo asked nervously. "I finally sensed the existence of the wheel of life. The divine power spring there is boiling." At this point, Yi Fan stopped talking and began to silently circulate the mysterious technique recorded in the Tao scripture to attack the Sea of Sufferings. Pang Bo was dumbfounded. He muttered to himself, "The wheel of life's divine power source is boiling? Why haven't I felt this before?" The thatched cottage gradually quieted down. Yi Fan sat there quietly like a stone statue, while Pang Bo anxiously and uneasily guarded him. After an unknown period of time, the thatched cottage suddenly shone brightly, and a tsunami-like sound burst out. Endless divine light rushed out from Yi Fan's Sea of Sufferings. It was golden and accompanied by lightning and thunder. Pang Bo was dumbfounded. He was so shocked that he couldn't speak. He stared blankly at everything in front of him. He saw that in Yi Fan's Sea of Sufferings, there were tens of thousands of rays of divine light, and it was as gorgeous as a rainbow. There were golden waves surging, and they were accompanied by bursts of lightning and thunder. There was a violent tsunami there, and the waves soared into the sky. Such a miraculous scene happening in the Sea of Sufferings was simply unheard of. Pang Bo was shocked to the extreme. He felt that everything in front of him was so incredible. He muttered to himself, "What on earth happened?" The deafening sound of the tsunami came from the thatched cottage as if there were thousands of troops and horses galloping. Pang Bo slapped himself hard to make sure that he wasn't dreaming. The tsunami reached the sky, the sound was like thunder, and the waves were tens of thousands. He felt that his mouth was dry. All of this was like a dream. The rumbling sound of the waves was like thousands of troops and horses galloping. At this moment, it seemed that he wasn't standing in the thatched cottage, but had come to the coast, and was facing a vast and undulating ocean. Yi Fan was silent and motionless. He sat there cross-legged, and the divine light in the Sea of Sufferings bloomed. It was gorgeous and dazzling. At this moment, the sound of the waves never stopped. The golden light shone, the lightning danced, and the waves were monstrous. That golden ocean, could it really be his Sea of Sufferings? Why would it shoot out and even outsiders can see it? Pang Bo was shocked and bewildered. He looked at Yi Fan in a daze. His Sea of Sufferings shone brightly, and the divine light flickered. The waves surged continuously. He had already confirmed that the sound of the tsunami came from Yi Fan's Sea of Sufferings. This was really shocking. The sea of sufferings that was hidden in his body was actually like the ocean in reality, and the sound of the waves never stopped. Pang Bo stood there almost petrified. There was a rumbling sound in front of him, and the golden waves seemed like they would rush out at any time, giving people a strong sense of oppression. Why is it golden? After being shocked by the sound of the tsunami, Pang Bo slowly calmed down after a long time. If that golden ocean was Yi Fan's sea of sufferings, it was too unusual. Pang Bo felt that it was inconceivable. He could now look at his own sea of sufferings. It was as dark as ink and looked lifeless. Elder Wu Qingfeng once said that the sea of sufferings that did not communicate with the wheel of life could only linger in the sky above the sea of sufferings. As for the sea of sufferings itself, it was a piece of dead silence. There was no fluctuation of life, and it was either dark green or pitch black. However, Yi Fan's sea of sufferings was so different. It was completely different from what Elder Wu Qingfeng had described. Rumble. In the sky above the surging sea of sufferings, bursts of thunder and lightning erupted from time to time, intertwining with the monstrous tsunami, causing the world to be blazing. The sea and the sky were connected, and there was bright golden light everywhere. It was exceptionally dazzling. Pang Bo watched nervously, fearing that something unexpected would happen. During this process, Yi Fan himself seemed to not feel anything. He remained silent and silently operated the mysterious method recorded in the Tao scripture. After a few hours, the golden light slowly subsided, and the sound of the tsunami gradually became softer. After another hour, the hut finally quieted down. Yi Fan's sea of sufferings returned to calmness. The brilliance was restrained, and the sound of the waves disappeared. Not long after, Yi Fan woke up. His eyes were clear. The moment he stood up, his whole body suddenly became much more agile, and there was an additional breath of immortal Tao. What happened just now? How do you feel now? Pang Bo asked impatiently. Just now, I sensed the wheel of life and even saw the boiling source of divine power. After that, I rushed into the sea of sufferings and saw a golden ocean. I don't know if it was an illusion. Hearing Yi Fan's description, Pang Bo suddenly opened his mouth in shock, and then nodded repeatedly saying, "It's not an illusion because I also saw it." You saw it too? Yi Fan revealed a look of surprise. That's right. You don't know how great the commotion was just now. The tsunami reached the sky, and the divine light shone brightly. The whole hut was shaking. Fortunately, we live in a very remote place. Otherwise, it would definitely cause a huge uproar. After listening to Pang Bo's description carefully, Yi Fan was finally convinced that the golden ocean and tsunami he saw were not an illusion. Pang Bo asked with concern, "How do you feel?" "I saw that the golden sea of sufferings disappeared at the last moment. Did it not succeed?" "I don't know if it's considered a success." At this point, Yi Fan operated the mysterious method recorded in the Tao scripture. An extremely small golden light spot appeared where the sea of sufferings was. It was only the size of a sesame seed, but it was bright and dazzling. Although the sea of sufferings is a little small, this is not a problem. As long as you continue to cultivate, it will gradually become bigger. Pang Bo looked very excited and said, "I am sure that your sea of sufferings is absolutely extraordinary. It is actually golden, completely different from ordinary people's. The brilliance that it emits can actually penetrate." Although he had only cultivated one sea of sufferings, Yi Fan was very happy. He had finally broken the stalemate and opened up a golden sea of sufferings that belonged to him. "Why do I feel that your sesame seed-sized sea of sufferings is fluctuating with divine power? Could it be that the concentrated essence is?" Pang Bo revealed a puzzled look. Chapter 47. The sea of sufferings of a cultivator, as its name suggested, was desolate, lifeless, and devoid of life fluctuations. However, in the center of Yi Fan's sea of sufferings, the golden light spot was shining brightly like the rising sun, full of vitality. As Pang Bo said, this golden sea of sufferings had a little fluctuation of divine power. Although it was very weak, it was obviously extraordinary. Compared with the sea of sufferings of other people, it could be called magical. The essence of the brilliant rainbow was completely different. Could it be that you have communicated with the wheel of life? According to Pang Bo's speculation, Yi Fan might have opened up a passage that connected to the wheel of life under the sea of sufferings, causing the divine spring to gush up, which caused such a magical scene. Yi Fan shook his head and denied Pang Bo's speculation. No passage has been opened, and there is no source of divine power flowing up. He was sure that this was indeed the sea of sufferings, not the divine spring that gushed out of the wheel of life. Pang Bo sighed and said, "This is really amazing. The sacred body of the ancients is really extraordinary and completely different from ordinary people. Could it be that the golden sea of sufferings is exclusive to people with this kind of physique? It's just a preliminary opening of the sea of sufferings. I don't know if I can continue to cultivate. Yi Fan did not let joy dilute his rationality. Then he began to look inside and carefully examine the situation of the sea of sufferings. The sesame-sized golden sea of sufferings was surrounded by endless darkness and emptiness, and it was as silent as a dead land. However, it was difficult to completely drown its light. This light spot was like a bright moon hanging in the sky. This caused boundless hope to arise in Yi Fan's heart. Perhaps one day he would be able to establish a boundlessly vast golden sea of misery, completely drive out the darkness and death energy, and allow this desolate place to glow with exuberant vitality. Yi Fan and Pang Bo discussed for a long time and agreed that Yi Fan's physique was too special. It was like a bottomless pit, and he needed a large amount of 100-herb liquid to open up the sea of sufferings. He was very different from ordinary people. He wasn't afraid of the medicinal power being too strong and piercing through his sea of bitterness. His sea of bitterness was simply an abyss that couldn't be filled. After coming to this conclusion, both of them were in a bit of a dilemma. Other disciples who had just joined the sect consumed a bottle of 100 herbs potion every 3 months, and they only consumed 4 bottles in a year. However, Yi Fan had just opened up a sesame-sized sea of bitterness, and he had consumed a total of 59 bottles, which was equivalent to the consumption of other people for more than 10 years. This was really scary. According to Elder Wu Qingfeng, the higher one climbed on the path of cultivation, the more difficult it would be. In the later stages, every step forward would cost 10 times the price of the earlier stages. Yi Fan fell into a daze as he thought about this. The same logic must apply to the consumption of the 100 herbs potion. It was only the beginning, but he already needed to consume dozens of bottles at the same time. It was hard to imagine how shocking the number would be when he succeeded in his cultivation. Don't worry, there will always be a solution. At this point, Pang Bo's eyes lit up as if he had thought of something. He said, "We can tell Elder Wu Qingfeng that you're able to cultivate. If you can successfully cultivate the sacred physique before the Antiquity Age, it will definitely be enough to shake the land of Yen and the Eastern Wilderness. It's simply unimaginable. I believe that the elders of the Spirit Ruin Wonderland will be very shocked and will do everything they can to provide you with what you need." Yi Fan thought about it carefully for a moment, then shook his head and said, "We can't tell them." What? Pang Bo was puzzled. First, because the Spirit Ruin Wonderland can't threaten the Eastern Wilderness. Once the news is leaked, I'll definitely die. Second, I suspect that although the Golden Sea of Bitterness is magical, it's very likely that I won't be able to continue cultivating it. It's most likely that I'll still be a cripple. Pang Bo thought about it carefully and agreed with the first reason. It was true that the news couldn't be leaked, or else he might really be killed. As for the second reason, I think you're overthinking it. Yi Fan shook his head and said, "Now I finally know why this kind of physique only appeared occasionally in the post-Antiquity Age, but it's so difficult to cultivate. The consumption alone is not something that ordinary sects can bear. It's fine in the early stages, but the path to immortality is long. Every step forward will increase the consumption tenfold. If the cultivation continues to grow at a tenfold speed, it'll be an unimaginably astronomical figure to barely cultivate to the middle stage, let alone the late stage. I'm afraid that even the sacred grounds and the ancient families that have been passed down from the Antiquity Age will find it difficult to cultivate. It can even be said that the loss outweighs the gain. Such consumption is more than enough to cultivate many other outstanding disciples. Is this the reason why the sacred body of the ancients can't be cultivated and became a cripple?" Pang Bo looked surprised. Yi Fan thought for a moment and said, "This reason was only discovered in the early stages of cultivation. I think it's far more than that. Otherwise, the sacred grounds and the families of the ancients wouldn't have given up so easily. It's very likely that there are more harsh and difficult conditions or reasons." How could this be? Pang Bo was in a daze. He felt that Yi Fan's future was bleak, and the path of cultivation seemed to be extremely difficult. However, Yi Fan did not look dejected at all. He said, "If the sacred body of the ancients could be cultivated so easily, then it would lose its meaning. The more difficult the path ahead, the more extraordinary it is. Go against the waves, climb the cliffs, and cross the abyss. Go as far as you can, and you might even be able to look at the peak." In the days that followed, Yi Fan and Pang Bo trained even harder to improve their cultivation. During this period, Elder Wu Qingfeng summoned Pang Bo to the back mountain of the spiritual ruin cave and officially confirmed him as a seedling. He encouraged Pang Bo to train hard and make the divine spring in the Sea of Bitterness gush as soon as possible. When that time came, he would take Pang Bo as his last disciple. After being officially confirmed as a seedling, Pang Bo could receive 8 bottles of 100 Herbs potion every month. Compared to the 4 bottles he could receive in a year before, the treatment was much better. Moreover, as his cultivation continued to improve, the supply would gradually increase in the future to meet all of his needs. There was no need to worry about the shortage of 100 Herbs potion. In the back mountain of the spiritual ruin cave, Pang Bo earnestly asked Elder Wu Qingfeng many questions. He mainly wanted to help Yi Fan solve the doubts of the Golden Sea of Bitterness. Elder Wu Qingfeng told him many secrets about the Sea of Bitterness. He said that there were some extraordinary figures in this world who opened the Sea of Bitterness, and there would indeed be all kinds of strange phenomena. What kind of strange phenomena will there be? Elder Wu Qingfeng talked about more than a dozen strange phenomena, but he did not mention the Golden Sea of Bitterness. In the end, Pang Bo could not help but ask directly, when the Sea of Bitterness is opened, is it possible that there will be a tsunami, a divine rainbow, and the Sea of Bitterness will turn into a golden ocean? Impossible. Elder Wu Qingfeng shook his head, but he hesitated in the end and said, perhaps the legendary divine body that reappeared in the Eastern Barren Territory may have such unparalleled strange phenomena, but it shouldn't have such a great impact. Recently, there was a rumor that a rare divine body had reappeared in the Eastern Barren Territory, and there was more than one case. It was said that all of them were still growing and were hidden in sacred grounds or families of the clan of the ancients. Even Elder Wu Qingfeng had heard many rumors. Almost all of those rare geniuses have been taken away by those sacred grounds and families of the clan of the ancients. Elder Wu Qingfeng seemed helpless. After Pang Bo returned, he repeated everything he had heard to Yi Fan. In the end, he said, it seems that the Golden Sea of Bitterness is indeed extraordinary. Even the legendary divine body that reappeared in the Eastern Barren Territory did not have such a great impact when it first opened the Sea of Bitterness. I really hope that your cultivation can go smoothly. By then, you will be able to compete with the geniuses nurtured by those sacred grounds and families of the clan of the ancients. After listening, Yi Fan thought for a long time. Then he looked at Pang Bo and said, I think it's time for me to leave the spiritual ruin cave. What? Pang Bo was very surprised. He did not know why Yi Fan suddenly made such a decision. I came to the spiritual ruin cave to learn how to cultivate. Now it's not suitable for me to stay here any longer. I need to go somewhere else to try my luck. No, if you're leaving, I'm leaving too. Pang Bo firmly opposed. You've already been confirmed as an immortal seedling. The spiritual ruin cave will do its best to nurture you, so there's no need for you to leave. However, I'm different. With my physique, I won't have any development in the spiritual ruin cave. Chapter 48. Since you're leaving, I'll definitely come with you. Pang Bo spoke very decisively and resolutely. He had made up his mind to leave with Yi Fan. Yi Fan would never agree. After Pang Bo was confirmed as a seedling, his future was bright. If he left now, everything would return to zero. The road ahead would be filled with uncertainties and accidents might even happen. There's another reason why I'm leaving. We've suppressed Han Feiyu and made him lose face. Pang Bo immediately interrupted him and said, don't worry about him. I'm a seedling now, so I believe he won't dare to do anything in the short term. Once we grow stronger, there's no need to be afraid of him. Yi Fan shook his head. This matter isn't as simple as it seems. I've been asking around and found out that his great-uncle is an alchemist expert. He's trying his best to refine a cauldron of yang reversion pills to increase his lifespan. In recent years, he's been searching for spiritual herbs at all costs. He's been going out and personally searching for them in the remote mountains. He's only been back for a few days, but Han Feiyu is already picking a fight with us. I'm afraid this matter isn't simple. Pang Bo nodded. He also felt that it was strange. They had no enmity with Han Feiyu, so there shouldn't be any conflict between them. They had never interacted before this. Don't tell me you're guessing that his great-uncle is trying to do something to us? Pang Bo's mind was very agile and he thought of many things in an instant. The two of them had accidentally regained their youth after eating a sacred herb. If Elder Han found out about this, he might really try to do something to them. I think his lifespan is almost up and he urgently wants to refine the yang reversion pill. It's very likely that he has his eyes on us. Yi Fan came to this conclusion and added, now that you're a seedling, he won't dare to do anything to you. However, if I continue to stay here, I'm afraid that something might happen. That old fart. Pang Bo frowned after hearing this. He no longer stopped Yi Fan from leaving, but he insisted on going with them. "If you want to go with us, then I won't be leaving," Yi Fan said straightforwardly. He didn't want to delay Pang Bo's cultivation. The Spirit Mausoleum Grotto Heaven was the best choice for Pang Bo. Pang Bo understood Yi Fan very well. Seeing him like this, Pang Bo did not insist and sat there in silence. "Go get a pen and paper, I'll leave the ancient scripture for you." Yi Fan had only told Pang Bo about the ancient scripture he obtained from the ancient bronze coffin. Previously he had recited a few sentences, but Pang Bo treated it like a heavenly book. Because it was too profound, he couldn't understand it at all. Even now, Yi Fan himself did not understand its meaning. He tried to figure it out for a long time, but he did not have the slightest clue. "To me, those scriptures are simply heavenly books. It's useless for me to keep them. I definitely won't lack mysterious techniques in the spirit ruin paradise, so I don't need to bother writing them." Yi Fan ignored him and grabbed a pen and paper to start writing. At the instant he moved the brush, the sound of a bell suddenly resounded in his heart. Hundreds of ancient characters flowed in his heart like a trickle, causing him to instantly feel refreshed. Yi Fan's pen moved like a dragon and a snake. He quickly wrote down lines of words on the paper, but at this moment something strange happened. The pen stopped and the words disappeared. When the pen in his hand stopped, the lines of ancient characters slowly faded away. Soon after, the paper turned into ashes. It was as if a mysterious power was contained in the tip of the pen, destroying everything. At the same time, the hundreds of ancient characters in Yi Fan's heart slowly became blurry and the voice also gradually disappeared. Pang Bo was dumbfounded. This matter was too mystical and made people feel that it was extremely evil. After a long time he finally opened his mouth and said, "I think, don't write any more. This heavenly book is too strange." He had never seen or heard of these hundreds of ancient characters before. They were even more ancient than the Bell Cauldron script. Originally, Yi Fan didn't recognize them, but due to the existence of the heavenly voice, he gradually understood their meaning when the hundreds of ancient characters were branded into his heart. Yi Fan lowered his head and pondered. He thought of some of the words that Elder Wu Qingfeng had said. There were sacred texts before the primordial times. Each character condensed a Tao rhyme and possessed a mysterious and unfathomable power. Just imitating them would cause indescribable and strange things to happen. Some people speculated that writing these ancient characters could communicate with the power of heaven and earth and cause the vitality to become chaotic, thus causing all kinds of inexplicable things to happen. Could it be that each stroke of these ancient characters condenses a kind of power that causes the surrounding essence of heaven and earth to become chaotic during the writing process, ultimately destroying the paper? Yi Fan muttered to himself. Then he began to carve on the ground. The moment the tip of the pen stopped, a fine electric arc swept across the ground and all the characters turned into ashes. Pang Bo felt that it was unimaginable and said, "This heavenly book is bewitching. Don't write it anymore." It's not that the heavenly book is bewitching, it's that these ancient characters are not ordinary. Each stroke condenses a kind of power that can disturb the essence of heaven and earth. When all the power is gathered together, it is enough to attract the surrounding power of heaven and earth and form a power that can erase the ancient scripture. Yi Fan made such a judgment. The more it was so, the more mysterious the ancient scripture became. The person who left this scripture behind was even more unfathomable. Hundreds of ancient characters were arranged together, preventing the ancient scripture from appearing in the world. It was as if this was a secret text that should not exist in the world. Yi Fan didn't persist. This ancient scripture was difficult to understand. Even if it was left behind by Pang Bo, he wouldn't be able to understand its meaning. In the end, Yi Fan chose to leave. Pang Bo silently sent him off. Walking along the cobblestone path from the depths of the celestial mountain, they arrived at the exit of the spirit ruin wonderland. When they stepped on the bluestone steps, the ancient scripture rang in Yi Fan's mind again. He turned to Pang Bo and said, "The spirit ruin wonderland's ancient bluestone steps must contain extraordinary items. You can come here more often." At this moment, Pang Bo suddenly widened his eyes and said, "Don't leave." Yi Fan also sensed something. He turned around and saw a familiar silhouette disappear in a flash. It was the young man that they had planted upside down on. "Han Feiyu hasn't given up yet. He actually sent someone to spy on us. Don't leave yet. If they see you leaving, they will definitely intercept you halfway." Yi Fan nodded and the two of them walked back. The young man was long gone, but on the way back, they saw Han Feiyu rushing over at lightning speed with a few people following behind him. Pang Bo's face suddenly turned livid. If he had not inadvertently discovered that the young man was tailing him, He would definitely regret it for the rest of his life if he let Yifan leave today. He scolded on the spot, Han Feiyu, you bastard. Do you think you can do whatever you want with your granduncle's support? Kill whoever you want? If you have the ability, come and kill me directly. Upon hearing his roar, Han Feiyu's face turned green. If the other elders or the sect master misunderstood that he wanted to eliminate the immortal seedlings of the Spirit Ruins Utopia, he might not be able to keep his life even with his granduncle's support. Don't talk nonsense, I just happened to pass by here. After saying that, he led the others away without looking back, looking very embarrassed. He had indeed come for Yifan today. After learning that Yifan was about to leave with his bag, he immediately rushed over to intercept him. Pang Bo's anger surged as he gnashed his teeth. This brat is really ruthless. He has always been spying on us. It looks like he really wants to find an opportunity to make a move against you. Don't leave for now. Yifan nodded. It was true that he couldn't leave without sufficient strength. Otherwise, his life might really be in danger. For the next month, everything was very calm. Han Feiyu didn't dare to send anyone to spy on Pang Bo and Yifan anymore. He was a lot more restrained in fear that Pang Bo would report this to the other elders. On this day, Pang Bo returned from Elder Wu Qingfeng's place with a slightly disappointed expression. What's wrong? Yifan asked. It might be good news for you, but it's not good news for me. Pang Bo sighed and said, I also feel that it might be dangerous for you to stay in the Spirit Ruin Wonderland for a long time. That's why I asked Elder Wu Qingfeng to send you away. It's indeed good news. Yifan immediately smiled and said, It's not like we'll be separated forever. There's no need to sigh. We'll meet again sooner or later. At that time, I hope that you'll be the all-powerful sect Master Pang. Your name will shake the Eastern Barren territory and make those sacred grounds and clans fear you. Pang Bo didn't want to part with Yifan, but there was nothing he could do. He said, I'll have to wait for a few days. Elder Wu Qingfeng will pick some disciples with potential and bring them to the primordial ruins outside the Spirit Ruin Wonderland to train. Countless years ago, the Spirit Ruin Wonderland was once a wasteland. It was cleaned up by later generations and turned into a blessed land. Could be said that the Spirit Ruin Wonderland had a long history. If one traced it back to the primordial era, this ancient land could be traced back to the primordial era. The primordial ruins were vast and endless. The Spirit Ruin Wonderland was only a small part of it. There was still a vast area that had yet to be cleaned up. Ancient trees towered into the sky, and all sorts of rare beasts roamed around the ruins. There were also many rare herbs growing there. Every year, the elders of the Spirit Ruin Wonderland would bring their disciples there to train. Not only was it a form of training, but it could also increase the disciples' knowledge. The ruins of the ancient Forest of Wolves were not a pure land. Many beasts and ferocious birds resided there. Although the elders were there, there would still be bloodshed every year. It's said that there are many rare herbs growing there. Some are even rare spiritual herbs. If you're lucky enough to find them, you can immediately exchange them with the elders and exchange them for pills. Pang Bo then looked at Yifan and said, You're in urgent need of the 100 grasses liquid. If you can find something there, you can temporarily solve your current problem. Chapter 49. This was indeed good news for Yifan. If he could gather spiritual herbs or hunt rare beasts there, it would effectively solve his urgent need. His golden bitter sea was like a dried-up lake that urgently needed to be replenished with a huge amount of essence qi. Only then could he continue to expand it and make the golden sea reappear. This time, Elder Wu Qingfeng will personally lead the team. There's no need to worry about that bullshit Elder Han. Thus, it was decided that both Yifan and Pang Bo would participate in this experiential learning. 2 days later, Wu Qingfeng and another elder led over 100 disciples out of the Spirit Ruins Paradise and walked towards the neighboring ancient ruins. Ancient trees towered into the sky, creating a primordial scene. Deafening roars of wild beasts could be heard from far away, along with faint waves of fierce killing intent. Strange ferocious birds could also be seen circling in the sky. Their bodies were over a few meters long and were incomparably huge. I'll remind you again, you must be careful. Do not underestimate this experiential learning because it concerns your life and death. Elder Wu Qingfeng explained many things that needed to be paid attention to. Finally, he gave an example to remind them. In the past, some disciples would often go into the depths of the ruins in order to gather rare spiritual herbs. If they encountered wild beasts, they would undoubtedly die. This is because the deeper you go, the more terrifying the fierce birds and wild beasts will be. Many of them are strange species left behind from the primordial era. Even the elders of the Spirit Ruins Paradise can't deal with them. Therefore you must not take the risk. The two elders led over 100 disciples and quickly arrived at the ruins. The dense spiritual energy here was not much worse than the spirit ruins paradise. As soon as they arrived, someone found medicinal herbs. Don't pick those that are too young. The elders surnamedly reminded. The giant trees here were extremely tall. Even a few people holding hands wouldn't be able to hug them. The old vines were all as thick as a thigh. Although it was called a ruin, it was more like a primitive forest. Giant python. As soon as they entered the forest, someone cried out in alarm. They found a brightly colored python that was as thick as a bucket. Puff. The python with colorful spots all over its body opened its mouth and spat out a mist, covering the screaming disciple on the spot. Suddenly, a shrill scream was heard. The other disciples all felt their hair stand on end and quickly retreated. The mist dissipated, leaving behind a snow-white skeleton and a lot of yellow liquid on the ground. The surrounding plants all withered. Elder Wu Qingfeng quickly approached and immediately frowned. He said, "Why did we encounter a poisonous dragon at the edge of the ruins? Something is not right." At this time, Elder Li also walked over and said, "This python is called the poison dragon. Its body is highly poisonous. You all have to be careful, don't be contaminated by the poisonous mist it spits out, otherwise you will immediately die from the poison." After Elder Li finished speaking, he reminded, "Its gallbladder is a good material for refining medicine. Disciples with ability can go collect it." They had just arrived at the edge of the ruins, and they had already encountered such a venomous python. Who knew what other terrifying beasts were inside? A disciple died on the spot, causing everyone to feel a chill in their hearts, and all of them became cautious. "I have come to get the snake gall." A 16 or 17-year-old girl walked out of the crowd and pressed forward. Her sea of bitterness lit up with a green light, quickly spreading to her arm and shooting out along her fingers. The green light was like a sword, and with a cheese sound, it cut the poisonous dragon in half. The girl carefully took out a fist-sized snake gall, and on the spot, she exchanged it for a bottle of 100 grass potion from Elder Li. The other disciples were immediately encouraged. Almost all of them had the ability to kill a poisonous python. As long as their hearts were fearless, they could let go of their hands and feet, and all of them would be able to reap some rewards in these ruins. Do not be afraid and do not be careless. In the following period of time, there may still be bloodshed and death, but this is something you all must experience. The flowers and plants in the greenhouse will one day have to face the cruel reality, otherwise they will never be able to truly grow. Although the two elders said this, they still frowned. They had just arrived at the edge of the ruins, and a disciple had already died. This was not a good sign. At this time, the other disciples began to move one after another. Soon, someone dug up a 10-year-old dragon's tongue, and at the same time, another disciple found an azure dragon's vine. Suddenly, an extremely sharp bird cry came from the depths of the ruins. It was like the sound of metal piercing through the sky, and it made people's eardrums hurt and buzzing. At this moment, everyone was shocked. They stopped and looked towards the direction of the sound, only to see a golden lightning streak across the sky, quickly diving down towards a mountain peak. What is that? Everyone was shocked. The golden lightning was too fast and it was impossible to see it clearly. All they could see was a blazing golden light rushing past. Elder Wu Qingfeng revealed a dignified expression and said, "That is a lightning bird as fast and terrifying as lightning. It is born with the power of thunder and lightning, and even I can only take a detour if I meet it." Roar! Suddenly, a deafening roar shook the heavens. On the mountain peak where the lightning bird was diving down, a giant ape covered in dense scales leaped up. It soared over 100 meters into the sky and pounced towards the lightning bird. "It's a scaled ape." On the other side, Elder Li's expression changed as he said, "I'm afraid it's the king of the scaled apes. Otherwise, it would be impossible for it to be so powerful, actually daring to attack the lightning bird." Elder Wu Qingfeng frowned and said, "It seems like the ruins are not peaceful. This time there will most likely be some twists and turns. Let's not go too deep." Ear-piercing bird cries and beast roars came from the depths of the ruins. It was as if the sky was being torn apart, coming from afar. This made the disciples' faces turn pale. Just now, they saw someone easily killing the poison dragon, which made many people's confidence soar. However, at this moment, they finally understood that the ruins were far more terrifying than they had imagined. There were many super-existences in the depths, and they could not provoke them at all. Let's go to another place to enter the ruins. Elder Wu Qingfeng still felt that this area was not too peaceful today. In any case, the primitive ruins were vast enough, so he immediately led the group to another area. After walking for more than 10 li, the group arrived at a messy stone forest. After passing through this place, they once again entered the ruins. Let me remind you again. Even if you want to go deeper, you cannot go more than 10 li, otherwise your life will definitely be in danger. You must act according to your own strength. After arriving here, the group began to split up. 3 to 5 people formed groups and each of them went forward together. They all wanted to gain something. The 100 herbs liquid was a huge temptation for the disciples who were opening up the sea of sufferings. Han Feiyu also participated in this time's experience. When he looked at Yi Fan and Pang Bo, his eyes flashed with a cold light. When Yi Fan and Pang Bo turned their heads to look at him, he immediately avoided their gazes and looked in another direction. Han Feiyu, you were almost killed by these 2 people? There were a few men and women traveling with Han Feiyu. They all looked to be around 18 or 19 years old. Each of them was full of vigor, and every movement they made had divine splendor flowing around them. Han Feiyu accompanied them. It was obvious that he was only one of them, and was far from being the center of attention. He could only stand at the side. Although one is an immortal seedling, he has just entered the sect and has not learned much. The other one is trash and can't cultivate. To be defeated by such an idiot, you really are a disgrace to Elder Han. The man and woman who spoke first were around 17 or 18 years old. Although they were a bit younger than the people beside them, they were surrounded like stars surrounding the moon. Pang Bo's anger rose when he heard this. These 2 people were too unscrupulous. They actually dared to ridicule Yi Fan as trash. He immediately said angrily, "What are you saying? Do you know how to speak human language?" The 17 or 18-year-old girl laughed coldly. There was a beauty mark at the corner of her mouth. Although she was very beautiful at this moment, she gave off a bone-chilling feeling. She coldly said, "Your temper is not small. Don't think that just because you are an immortal seedling that you can look down on others. You have to know that no one can predict the future. An immortal seedling can also die prematurely." "Who is the arrogant one? Did we provoke you? You called us trash the moment you arrived. If we can be considered arrogant, then you can be considered as blind." Pang Bo retorted without any trace of politeness. "If it wasn't for the elder's order that disciples are not allowed to fight here, I would really want to properly teach you a lesson on how to be a well-behaved disciple." The eyes of the girl with a beauty mark flickered with a cold light. She glanced at Yi Fan, then stared at Pang Bo and said, "You might be a celestial sprout, but you can't just casually bring people here. This ruin is an important place of the spirit ruins paradise, so how can we allow riffraff to come and go as they please?" The 17 or 18-year-old youth standing next to him also mocked, "Not just anyone can cultivate. One must know one's limits." His eyes flashed coldly as he looked at Yi Fan and said, "Please leave as soon as possible. This is a place for the disciples of our spirit ruin paradise to train. Outsiders are not allowed to enter." "Shut your damn mouths." Pang Bo was furious. Insulting Yi Fan was equivalent to insulting him, so he really wanted to charge forward. Yi Fan pulled him back and glanced at them. He did not say anything and only took out a jade pendant, waved it in front of them and strode forward. "It's Elder Wu's jade pendant." Their expressions instantly turned ugly. They originally wanted to chase Yi Fan away, but they didn't want to waste their words. Han Feiyu stepped forward and said, "Senior sister Li Lin, senior brother Li Yun, don't look for trouble with them for now. My great uncle doesn't allow me to provoke them right now. He will definitely punish me if he finds out." After walking a few hundred meters, Pang Bo said, "I remember now. I saw them in the back mountain of the spirit ruin paradise. I was far away back then, so I didn't pay much attention." Elder Wu Qingfeng casually mentioned that the woman was called Li Lin and that she was also an immortal seedling. That man was called Li Yun. Although he wasn't an immortal seedling, his aptitude was very special and not much inferior to one. Yi Fan turned around and said, "It looks like you won't be in any danger in the spirit ruin paradise, but you won't be able to live comfortably in the future." Pang Bo did not seem to care and said, "Only when there's pressure will there be motivation. My current goal is to trample on those bastards in 3 years." I finally know why Elder Wu Qingfeng sighed and said that the good and the bad are intermingled in recent years. Yi Fan reminded, "The spirit ruin paradise doesn't seem to be as peaceful as it seems on the surface. There might be a conflict between the elders, so you must be careful in the future." "I know." Elder Wu Qingfeng said that he wants to take me as his last disciple. "I'm thinking that I might go to the back mountain to cultivate after you leave. I won't cause trouble until I succeed in my studies." Yi Fan pondered for a moment before he shook his head and said, "It's a pity that we're not strong enough. Otherwise we could make a plan and help you deal with these troubles." It's fine, don't worry about me. They can't do anything to me. Pang Bo was still angry as he said, don't mind their words. Yi Fan smiled and said, don't worry, I'm too lazy to say anything to them, so I naturally won't mind. That's good. Don't worry about anything for now. You just need to work hard on your cultivation. Wait until you open your golden bitter ocean and let them know who's the real trash. Not long after, Li Lin, Li Yun and Han Feiyu caught up to them. However, they weren't here for them this time. They were just passing by. Let's go into the depths of the ruins and leave the outside to those trash. Li Lin wore a faint sneer. The beauty mole at the corner of her mouth was a little dazzling, making people feel a little cold. Yi Fan stood to the side and quietly watched them leave without saying a word. That bitch. Pang Bo was furious, but he could only endure it for now. He didn't have the strength to fight back. In the next 2 days, Yi Fan and Pang Bo found more than 10 types of medicinal herbs. However, when they sent them to the 2 elders to exchange, they only received 2 bottles of 100 herbs potion. In fact, many people were in the same situation. Many people couldn't even exchange for a bottle of 100 herbs potion. Moreover, 3 disciples died in these 2 days. No, although there are some medicinal herbs in the outer area, they're not old enough. They've already been collected by our predecessors. As for those rare beasts, I'm afraid they've already gone far away when they saw so many people coming in at the same time. It's even more impossible to hunt them. 2 bottles of 100 herbs potion meant nothing to Yi Fan. They couldn't be of any use at all. After a discussion, both of them agreed that if they wanted to dig out real spiritual herbs and hunt spirit beasts, they had to go deep into the ruins like Li Lin and the rest. It's too dangerous inside. We can't deal with those beasts. Moreover, if we meet Li Lin and Li Yun, even if they don't dare to attack us openly, I'm afraid they'll play dirty tricks in the dark. The 2 of them discussed for a long time before they finally looked into the distance. They wanted to get away from this area and go to another area. 2 days ago, the lightning bird that flew across the sky with its blazing golden body left a deep impression on them. There was also the scaled ape king, which was covered in dense scales and had leaped more than 100 meters into the air from the peak of the mountain. It shocked them even more. At the moment, the lightning bird and the scaled ape king appeared in front of them from time to time. For the past 2 days, there had been ear-piercing cries of birds and beasts in the depths of the area. The commotion was very loud and it only quieted down today. Why were these 2 terrifying beasts fighting? Both of them felt that there must be an unusual reason. At this moment, the depths of the ruins had gradually calmed down. They felt that if they could sneak into that area, they might be able to reap some amazing rewards. Yi Fan and Pang Bo were very decisive people. After they made up their minds, they immediately moved and sneaked into that area. Chapter 50. As soon as they approached the area, Yi Fan and Pang Bo were startled. Hundreds of bucket-thick poisonous dragons were spitting out their tongues, filling the air with poisonous mist and corroding a large part of the forest beyond recognition. In addition, muffled roars could be heard coming from the depths of the forest. Countless large beasts were pacing back and forth. For some reason they didn't attack each other. They were all extremely anxious, gathering in this area. More and more of them were like a surging tide, surging out from the inside. Most of the vicious beasts couldn't even name them. Meanwhile, a large number of mutant birds had also gathered in the sky, circling around at low altitude. Their bodies were all several meters tall, forming a black mass that blotted out the sun. What's going on? Yi Fan and Pang Bo were both astonished. The scene before them was simply too astonishing. A sea of beasts and birds had gathered in this area. All of them were restless and surging forward like a surging tide. Yi Fan observed for a while and said, I think they must have retreated from the depths of the ruins. Could it be that the battle between the lightning birds and the scaled ape king alarmed the other beasts? It's hard to say. Even if it's a battle between a beast king, it's impossible to alarm so many strange beasts and spirit birds. How are we supposed to go over? So many beasts are so densely packed like a tide, completely blocking our way. Let's find a place to circle around. This is definitely an opportunity. I think there's most likely a vacuum inside. Perhaps there are supreme beast kings fighting in the depths. Or perhaps some other unforeseen event has driven most of the beasts to the edge of the forest. The 2 of them circled around for more than 10 miles before they found a precipice. They climbed up along the vines and continued to climb over a few cliffs. In the end, they followed the old vines down and finally arrived at the depths of the jungle, avoiding the fierce beasts and birds that were like tidewater. It's so quiet here. This area was filled with towering ancient trees and old vines. It was lush and verdant, but it was extremely quiet. It was as if all living creatures had fled. It was deathly quiet without a single sound. What happened in the depths of the ruins? Even if it's a battle between beast kings, it shouldn't be like this. I think there must be some other reason. Otherwise, how could all the ferocious birds and beasts escape? Yi Fan and Pang Bo were a little bewildered, but in the end they still walked forward. Soon they had traveled more than 10 kilometers. The ancient trees were even more vigorous, and it was a completely primitive style. Hiss hiss. In a rocky forest, a hissing sound could be heard, as if there were snakes spitting out their tongues. A multicolored mist filled the air, and waves of fishy stench could be felt. Giant snake! Pang Bo exclaimed. In the middle of the stone forest, there was a giant snake as thick as a water tank. It coiled around a pile of rubble and continuously spat out a 5-colored poisonous mist. It was extremely anxious and uneasy. It's not an ordinary snake. It has a jade horn on its head. The snake was as thick as a water tank, and the scales on its body were as big as a human's palm. They were colorful and very bright, and they sparkled under the sunlight. And the most peculiar thing was the jade horn on its head. Brilliance continuously flowed down like rainbow-colored threads, shining and sparkling as they converged into its head. This horned snake has already become a spirit and knows how to swallow the essence of the sun and moon. If it grows claws under its abdomen, it will be the legendary flood dragon. The two's hearts trembled. Not all the ferocious beasts had retreated. There were still some powerful characters that stayed behind. However, this giant snake was also very anxious. It seemed as if it wanted to leave, but it was somewhat hesitant. Suddenly, a soft muffled sound came from the depths of the ruins. It sounded like a giant drum being beaten, and it came from a long distance away. After hearing this muffled sound, Yi Fan and Pang Bo didn't know why, but they both felt somewhat anxious. And at this time, the giant snake with the jade horn couldn't help but tremble a few times. Then it suddenly moved its body and quickly rushed into the depths of the stone forest. Snake Cave. The stone forest was its nest. It anxiously rushed into a huge black hole and refused to come out. The multicolored poisonous fog dissipated, and the fishy smell drifted away. Everything in the stone forest could be seen clearly. This should be the jade-horned snake that the imparting elder mentioned. At first the two didn't think much of it. But when the poisonous fog dissipated and they saw the pitch-black snake cave in the depths of the stone forest, they remembered something. I remember what the imparting elder said. This kind of jade-horned serpent evolved from an old serpent swallowing the essence of the sun and moon for more than 100 years. In its habitat there is a rare elixir called the jade serpent orchid. Although the two had some impression, they didn't remember it very clearly. Aside from teaching mysterious techniques, the imparting elder had also passed on a lot of other knowledge in the past few months. For example, the explanation of cultivation manuals, weapons, and spirit herbs. Yi Fan and Pang Bo focused on cultivation, and didn't put too much effort into other knowledge. Before this trip they had crammed in the relevant books. Otherwise, although they could recognize many medicinal herbs, they might not be able to discover them quickly. It's indeed the jade serpent orchid. Yi Fan and Pang Bo were very excited. At the entrance of the pitch-black snake cave, they saw 3 strange plants the size of a palm. The plants were as white as jade, and their entire bodies were crystalline. At a glance they looked like 3 small white snakes standing there. There were a few white jade leaves hanging from them, and at the tip was a glowing white jade orchid. The 3 plants were very strange, and one could tell at a glance that they were extraordinary. There were specks of light swirling around them, and a faint fragrance wafted over with the wind. That's right, it's the jade serpent orchid. When they saw the jade serpent orchid, with their own eyes, the imparting elder's words seemed to echo in their ears. The two immediately thought of the precious value of this plant. It was said that when the old snake swallowed the essence of the sun and moon, the snake cave would be surrounded by dense spiritual energy. However, ordinary plants wouldn't be able to withstand it. Even spirit herbs would turn to dust after a long period of time. Only a strange orchid could survive. When the old snake swallowed the essence of the sun and moon, it would absorb the essence. After being baptized by spiritual energy for more than 100 years, it would condense large amounts of the sun and moon's essence, transforming into a strange plant that resembled the old snake. Therefore it was known as the jade serpent orchid. It had extraordinary detoxification effects. It could cure many strange poisons in the world. It grew by the side of a snake cave, and it matched the fact that there were detoxifying spirit herbs beside venomous insects. In addition, it would accompany the old snake in swallowing the essence of the sun and moon, condensing large amounts of vital essence. It was a favorite of cultivators. The two held back their urge and didn't dare rush over to pluck it directly. It was said that the old snake had prepared it for himself. When the jade serpent orchid completely transformed into the old snake's appearance, it would swallow it. If anyone had any designs on the jade serpent orchid, the old snake would definitely risk his life. The old snake has already transformed into a jade-horned snake. However, these 3 jade serpent orchids have yet to completely transform into the old snake's appearance. They haven't fully matured. How do we pluck them? I believe the old snake was given a fright just now. It hid deep into the snake cave and temporarily doesn't dare to come out. If we slowly sneak over, we should be able to successfully pluck them. It's a little unsafe. Let's wait a moment. If there's another dull sound from deep within the ruins, we will quickly rush over and pluck it before immediately escaping. Alright, let's wait patiently for a while. After the two finished their discussion, they hid in the rock forest. Although they didn't know what was happening deep within the ruins, they felt that the situation was likely to continue. The dull sound from before would continue. As expected, in less than a quarter of an hour, 3 muffled sounds rang out. Yi Fan and Pang Bo were alarmed. This was a strange feeling that they didn't understand. It was as if their souls were trembling involuntarily. The two calmed their minds and quickly rushed forward. They plucked the 3 jade serpent orchids from the snake cave's entrance and rushed out of the rock forest without looking back. After running for several kilometers, they came to a stop. At that moment, there was a rumbling sound behind them. It was as though there was an earthquake in the rock forest. Clearly, Old Snake had rushed out. Dong. Another dull sound came from deep within the ruins. Yi Fan and Pang Bo's hearts palpitated violently as they felt their chests ache. However, it was also because of this dull sound that the rock forest where Old Snake was located quieted down. Fortunately, we succeeded. I was really afraid that the Old Snake would chase after us. It has already become a spirit. Ordinary experts can't do anything to it, let alone us. The two of them sat on a large blue stone and wiped off their cold sweat. Yi Fan and Pang Bo carefully looked at the jade serpent orchid in their hands. It really looked like an old snake with leaves and orchids on its head. Even the stem had patterns that resembled scales. Its entire body was crystalline and translucent, as though it was carved from suet jade. A refreshing fragrance surged into their organs. Unfortunately, it hasn't fully ripened yet. Be content. Such things can only be chanced upon. It's said that it contains large amounts of life essence. I wonder what its true effects are. Let's find a safe place and try consuming it. The two of them would never exchange the jade serpent orchid with the spirit ruin grotto heaven's elder for the 100 herbs liquid. Such an item was definitely many times better than the 100 herbs liquid, which was extracted from 100 herbs. Yi Fan and Pang Bo grabbed vines and climbed up a cliff. The vegetation here was lush, but there were no signs of beasts or birds. It was very quiet. After consuming the jade serpent orchid, we don't have to worry about encountering snakes, scorpions, or venomous insects. The two discussed for a moment before Yi Fan decided to consume one to see the effects. His physique was rather special, so he didn't have to worry about the medicinal effects being too strong and penetrating the sea of bitterness. Yi Fan bit off half of the jade serpent orchid and the fragrance immediately spread. The entire cliff was filled with the fragrance. His mouth was filled with the fragrance and he felt all the pores on his body open up. The surroundings were filled with dense spiritual energy. The broken jade serpent orchid was emitting life essence and there were tiny rays of multicolored light circulating around it. Yi Fan hurriedly put the remaining half of the jade serpent orchid into his mouth. Then he quickly sat down cross-legged and began to circulate the mysterious technique recorded in the Tao scripture. His entire body was motionless like a fossil. Not long after, Yi Fan's breathing suddenly became rapid. His face was as red as blood, his blood vessels were gushing and his skin was bright red. Then, specks of brilliance rippled out from the surface of his body. Pang Bo was very nervous as he quietly watched. He could feel a powerful spiritual energy attacking Yi Fan's flesh and organs. It was to the extent where one could even clearly hear Yi Fan's blood rumbling, as if a surging river was surging. There was a powerful wave of life essence energy swirling within his body, continuously cleansing his flesh and blood, radiance even seeping out. Only after an hour did the sound in Yi Fan's blood stop. His breathing gradually became longer and his pulse also stabilized. His entire body was much more agile. Boom. Suddenly at this moment Yi Fan's sea of bitterness burst out rays of blazing golden light. The rays of divine rainbows were bright and dazzling. It's coming? Pang Bo was a little excited. The scene he saw last time reappeared. Yi Fan's sea of bitterness turned into a golden ocean. Waves of rumbling sounds of tsunamis came out, as if thousands of troops and horses were galloping. It was deafening. Angry waves rushed into the sky. The golden light was dazzling. The endless ocean, vast and undulating, swept up high into the sky. Blazing divine brilliance scattered all over the sky. Boom! Lightning flashed and thunder roared. Golden lightning streaked across the sky. Thousands of thunderclaps sounded in the sky. The destructive power contained endless vitality. The vigorous vitality surged in the dancing lightning. The golden ocean, with monstrous waves, interweaved with the blazing lightning, forming a strange world of endless divine brilliance. The deafening sound of tsunamis came. Even though Pang Bo had seen it before, he was still a little stunned at this moment. The golden sea of bitterness seemed to have a strange power, constantly shaking. Yi Fan's sea of bitterness shone brightly, making the surrounding scenery shine with divine brilliance. After a full 4 hours, everything slowly calmed down. The golden light converged and the sound of the waves disappeared. Yi Fan's sea of bitterness returned to silence. His whole person suddenly became much more ethereal, with a kind of immortal-like temperament. He seemed to be extraordinary and refined. An hour later Yi Fan opened his eyes. It was as if 2 bolts of lightning had flashed through them. His eyes shone with a divine light, full of vigor and vitality. How do you feel? I feel very good. The sea of bitterness has become bigger. Yi Fan began to operate the mysterious method recorded in the Taoist scripture. The sea of bitterness suddenly lit up with a golden light. The sea of bitterness, which was the size of a sesame seed, became the size of a soybean, like a magic lamp fixed there. This speed of development is really amazing. While Pang Bo was happy for Yi Fan, he was also very surprised. This time, when Yi Fan opened the sea of bitterness, it suddenly expanded many times. There were traces of divine power flowing in the golden sea of bitterness, making Yi Fan feel incomparably comfortable. The divine splendor rippling from the sea of bitterness was nourishing his flesh and blood. Yi Fan operated the mysterious method of the Taoist scripture. A golden divine splendor rushed out from the sea of bitterness and shot out along his finger. With a soft chi sound, it pierced through an ancient tree in front of him. Pang Bo was stunned and said, "You can actually use an attack similar to the divine glyph. The jade serpent orchid is indeed extraordinary. The life essence it contains is many times stronger than the dozens of bottles of 100 herbs liquid last time." Yi Fan sighed. This time, he opened the golden sea of bitterness very smoothly. Pang Bo also revealed a look of excitement and said, "This time's experience was not in vain. The harvest of these 3 spiritual medicines must be more than the harvest of the others combined. I really don't know what happened in the depths of the ruins. Are we still going to go deeper? Of course we have to continue moving forward. If we go deeper there might be more harvests. The vicious birds and wild beasts have all escaped. This is a rare opportunity. Moreover, there might be some kind of amazing change happening in the depths of the ruins. It might be a great opportunity for us." Chapter 51. Pang Bo did not dare consume the jade serpent orchid. He was afraid that his sea of suffering would be pierced. His physique was not as terrifying as Yi Fan's. He could not withstand the massive amounts of vital essence, so all he could do was return to think of a solution. "Did the dull sound from deep within the ruins sound a few more times?" asked Yi Fan. Pang Bo nodded and said, "Over the past 4 hours, there would be a few sounds every once in a while. It seems to have been repressed. The entire ruins have become even more silent. Even the beasts that retreated to the periphery like a receding tide no longer growled. However, it's fortunate. If not, I would really be afraid that the old snake would chase after us. That dull sound makes all the beasts shudder in fear. I wonder if the jade-horned snake has left. This old snake that has already gained a sentient spirit is definitely enraged. It's best if it has already left. If not, we might encounter it when we head deeper into the ruins." "What's that smell?" Yi Fan revealed a look of puzzlement as he said, "Why is there a faint fishy smell?" Pang Bo took a deep breath before his expression changed instantly. He said, "It smells like the old snake." At that moment Yi Fan's expression changed drastically. He pulled Pang Bo up and whispered, "Let's go." A few hundred meters ahead of them, a ferocious snake head peeked out from the bottom of the cliff. Its body was covered in colorful scales the size of a palm that shimmered coldly. Its pair of red lantern-like snake eyes emitted 2 sanguine beams. Its 2 to 3 meter long tongue hissed, and when it came into contact with the vegetation on the cliff, it immediately turned into yellow liquid. "The old snake is chasing after us." Pang Bo's expression changed immediately. He never expected that the snake demon would eventually pursue them. The only thing he was thankful for was that it had yet to discover them. Above the cliff, there were many towering ancient trees. The duo quickly retreated and arrived at the back of the cliff. They grabbed vines and jumped down. If they were any slower, their lives would be in danger. The old snake was definitely enraged. If it discovered them, the tragic outcome was imaginable. Yifan and Pang Bo were extremely fast. They were like two apes as they charged and jumped. They quickly followed the vines on the cliff to the ground and left without looking back. Now that this old snake has a grudge against us, we are really in danger. As the two of them flew away, they looked back and saw a giant multicolored snake standing upright on the cliff. Two rays of blood-red light shot out from its eyes, and the jade horn on its head shone brilliantly under the sunlight, constantly shooting out rays of divine light. Boom! There were rumbling sounds coming from the cliff as huge boulders kept tumbling down. Many trees were flattened by Old Snake as he descended the cliff and quickly chased in that direction. Oh no, we've been discovered. Hurry up and run back. Let Elder Wu Qingfeng deal with this snake demon. No, Old Snake's speed is too fast. There are also those beasts obstructing us outside. We will definitely be caught by him midway. Now there's no other way. I have to rush into the ruins. That dull sound seems to be able to intimidate Old Snake. It's afraid and likely won't dare to venture too deep. After the two finished their discussion, they transformed into two streams of light and rushed deep into the ruins. However, the jade-horned snake had already gained sentience. It was miraculous and extraordinary. Its speed was as fast as lightning and it could control strong winds. Wherever it passed, all the vegetation would fall to the side, opening up a path for it. Rumble. Rocks tumbled as Old Snake moved more ferociously than a road roller. Wherever he passed, the ground quaked as grass snapped and trees snapped. There was nothing that could stop him. The hissing sounds grew closer as a foul stench constantly inundated him. Yifan did not feel any discomfort, but Pang Bo felt dizzy. He said, "This old snake's venom is too strong. We are still hundreds of meters away, but the poisonous mist has already drifted over. I feel like my body can't take it. Quickly eat a jade serpent orchid petal." Yifan was very anxious as well. Old Snake's speed was astounding. He was closing in and was about to catch up. If anything were to happen to Pang Bo, it would be too late for regret. Pang Bo did not dare to swallow the entire jade serpent orchid. He wanted to tear off a piece of the orchid petal that resembled suet jade, but he felt that it wasn't safe. He was afraid that the medicinal essence would be too strong and penetrate his sea of bitterness. Finally, he plucked off a bit of the stamen and placed it in his mouth before swallowing it. "How do you feel?" Yifan was afraid that something would happen to Pang Bo. "It's truly miraculous." Pang Bo heaved a sigh of relief. Not long after he consumed it, the nauseating feeling vanished. He no longer felt dizzy and he felt refreshed. Soon, the snake venom's invasion was stopped. As expected of a spirit herb, it can cure all the rare poisons in the world. Yifan felt relieved. Kacha. Kacha. Behind them, Old Snake closed the distance once again. He tore apart the ancient trees that blocked his path in a terrifying manner. The short shrubs automatically parted, revealing a snake-like path. Old Snake's eyes were bloodshot as he spat out a mouthful of poisonous mist. Although he was still more than 100 meters away, he was rapidly closing in. Sizzling sounds constantly resounded around them as the trees around Yifan and Pang Bo rapidly melted, turning into a pool of yellow water. It was extremely shocking. If not for the duo consuming the jade serpent orchid, the outcome was obvious. They would probably be a pool of corpse water. This snake venom is too domineering. If this continues, it will be difficult for us to escape death. Old Snake will soon catch up to us. If it were an ordinary person, Old Snake would have long caught up to them. His speed was just too fast. A jade-horned snake that had turned into a spirit moved with the wind. Could be said to be as fast as lightning. Yifan and Pang Bo had consumed the holy fruit in the ancient desolate forbidden zone. Not only did they possess the strength of a flood dragon elephant, their speed had also greatly increased. If it were anyone else, they would have long been caught up to. Hold on. I believe that the dull sound is about to sound again. When that happens, Old Snake will definitely feel fear. That will be our chance to escape. The ground quaked as boulders tumbled. Old Snake had nearly caught up to them and was only about 70 to 80 meters away. The expressions on Yifan and Pang Bo's faces finally changed as they hurriedly turned and dodged to the side. Whoosh! Old Snake charged past them, but he was not as clumsy as imagined. He swept his gigantic tail like a thick metal whip that cleaved through the air. Immediately, a patch of trees was snapped. Leaves flew everywhere as a foul stench assailed their nostrils. Although Yi Fan and Pang Bo were not hit by the gigantic tail that was tens of meters long, they were struck by the snapped trees. The gigantic trees were like boulders that slammed into them, sending them flying. If it wasn't for their extraordinary physiques and shocking divine strength that allowed them to withstand this powerful impact, their bones would have been broken long ago. Even so, the two of them still felt their blood and chi roiling, and they staggered a few dozen steps before they could stabilize themselves. Suddenly, a great sense of danger surfaced in their hearts. At that moment, an ear-piercing sound was heard. The jade horn on Old Snake's head shot out a dazzling beam of light that slashed at the duo like a sharp sword that was tens of meters long. "Let's go." The expressions on Yi Fan and Pang Bo's face changed as they charged forward with all their might, leaving behind two afterimages. The divine radiance, which was more than 20 meters long, directly chopped many ancient trees into pieces. It also left a terrifying crack in the ground. Even the boulders that were blocking the way were cut in half. The cuts were extremely smooth as if they were tofu. A demon snake that has gained sentience is too terrifying. A chill arose in Yi Fan and Pang Bo's hearts. Indeed, there was no such thing as a free lunch in this world. It was impossible to obtain something without paying a price. If not for the drastic change that had happened deep in the ruins, they would not have had a chance of plucking the jade snake orchid. Even so, they were being pursued to a dead end. "We can last for at most 7 minutes. Dong." Just as the duo finished their sentence, a dull thud sounded from deep within the ruins. Yi Fan and Pang Bo felt as though they had been struck by lightning. Their bodies trembled as they felt a pain in their hearts. As for the gigantic snake, it was even worse. It tumbled to the ground and violently writhed its massive body, crushing the surrounding trees. "Let's go." After stabilizing their minds, Yi Fan and Pang Bo flew away, not daring to stay a moment longer. The dull thud stopped as the entire ruins turned even more repressed. Yi Fan and Pang Bo had no way of retreating. Old Snake had blocked their path of retreat, so they could only continue advancing. Soon, the duo came in front of a boulder that was more than 100 meters tall. They climbed up the vines and looked back. Darn it, that old snake still chased after us. Far away, the trees were stirring. Although the jade-horned snake had slowed down, it was still chasing after the duo. This can't go on. It might even chase us deep into the ruins. Yi Fan and Pang Bo felt that something was amiss. Such a thing that has gained sentience is really not to be trifled with. There are figures moving up ahead. Yi Fan revealed a look of astonishment. There were a few figures rapidly traversing through the mountainous terrain. Pang Bo looked into the distance and said, "It's Li Lin, Li Yun, Han Feiyu and company. From the looks of it, those people have the same idea as us. They want to take advantage of this rare opportunity to enter the depths of the ruins and search for it wantonly." At that moment, Yi Fan and Pang Bo exchanged looks as they chuckled. The duo quickly climbed down the boulder and charged forward as fast as lightning. Li Lin, Li Yun and Han Feiyun's goal was to destroy the ancient structures in the depths. They understood the ancient ruins far better than Yi Fan and Pang Bo. They knew that today's abnormality was definitely not due to the battle between the Beast Kings. It was most likely due to an unforeseen event in the depths of the ruins. If they could enter that place smoothly, they might encounter an unimaginable opportunity. One had to know that these ruins had been left behind since the primordial era. Someone is approaching here. They actually have the same idea as us. Li Yun revealed his killing intent and said, "Intercept them in a moment. Who knows, they might have already found some spirit items." "It's Pang Bo and that trash called Yi Fan." Li Lin's killing intent was thick. She looked at the approaching duo and said, "You dare approach us? You're courting death." Han Feiyu's face was filled with hatred. His eyes shot out a ruthless glint. Yi Fan and Pang Bo were very fast. In just a short while they had arrived not far away. "Li Lin, brother Li Yun, I didn't expect to meet you two here. It's fate." Yi Fan and Pang Bo were both overjoyed and moved. It was as if they had reunited with their loved ones that they had not seen for a long time. They quickly rushed over with indescribable joy and enthusiasm. 1 day apart feels like 3 autumns. 2 days is 6 years. We finally meet again. Yi Fan and Pang Bo approached with large strides. They wanted nothing more than to throw themselves at the group to express their joy. This made Li Lin, Li Yun and the rest feel uneasy. Goosebumps rose all over their bodies as they involuntarily shivered. Li Lin immediately revealed a look of disgust. She glanced at Pang Bo and then at Yi Fan with disdain. "Don't try to curry favor. It's useless no matter what you do. You can't change anything." She stood on a huge boulder and looked down at Pang Bo and Yi Fan with a ruthless expression. She said in a cold voice, "You two are really audacious. Aren't you afraid of dying in this forest? The depths of the ruins are not a place for trash to come." Li Yun's expression was also incomparably cold. He stared at Yi Fan and Pang Bo and sneered. He was considering whether or not to act immediately. His only worry was that Elder Wu Qingfeng had left a mark on Pang Bo's body. When the time comes, he would be able to find out what happened. Even though they humiliated the two and revealed their murderous intent, Yi Fan and Pang Bo acted as if nothing had happened. They were completely familiar with each other and joined in. What was even more outrageous was that the two of them held Han Feiyu's hands together and said, "Han Feiyu, you're really a good person. Did you two pick some kind of spiritual herb? Why is your body filled with a fragrant smell?" Li Lin's murderous intent was revealed. The beauty mole at the corner of her mouth trembled slightly. However, in an instant her expression changed. She said, "Something's wrong. Why is there a fishy smell?" Rumble, rumble, rumble. At this time the group felt the earth shaking. They turned around to look. "That's a snake spirit. An old snake spirit. That's a jade horn snake." Everyone's expression changed. They saw an old snake with a single horn on its head riding the wind, snapping the grass and trees as it rushed towards them. The thick fishy smell was nauseating. "Damn it, it's the two of you." Li Lin, Li Yun, Han Feiyu and the others understood everything in an instant. They wanted nothing more than to grind Yi Fan and Pang Bo's bones into ashes. However, this was not the time to be angry. They turned around and fled, looking incomparably miserable. "Han Feiyu, you two are really good people," Yi Fan and Pang Bo said to Han Feiyu and the others as they fled. Chapter 52. At that moment, Li Lin, Li Yun, Han Feiyu, and company wished they could skin Yi Fan and Pang Bo alive. No matter how they looked at them, they felt that their smiles were despicable. It was as though they were asking for a beating. Of course, that was only what they felt. In fact, Yi Fan and Pang Bo thought they were smiling rather brilliantly. All the pores on their bodies opened up and they felt rather comfortable. "Pang Bo, you are courting death. I won't spare you." Li Lin cursed. Her beautiful face was extremely cold, and it carried a frightening killing intent. Li Yun was also furious. This was an undeserved calamity. They were being pursued by a snake spirit for no reason. He shouted, "Pang Bo, you are forcing us. Even if you are an immortal seedling, we will not rest until one of us is dead. And that trash, just you wait. I'll kill you with my own hands." A five-colored poisonous mist spewed out, enveloping the crowd like a rainbow-colored robe. Li Lin and Li Yun did not dare to speak again. They quickly charged forward, afraid that they would be enveloped by the snake venom. At that moment, a blood-curdling scream was heard. One of them failed to dodge in time and was reduced to a puddle of corpse water. Even his bones became abnormally charred and corroded to the point of shattering. Everyone was horrified. This demon snake was too terrifying. A random mouthful of poisonous mist could reduce a cultivator to bones. It was terrifying. And what infuriated Li Lin, Li Yun and company the most was that Pang Bo was running faster than a rabbit. He was charging and leaping in front of them, leaving them far behind. He was using them as human shields. As for the trash in their eyes, Yi Fan, he was even faster. He charged right in front and led the crowd. It made Han Feiyu and company feel like they were going crazy. Even a piece of trash had run ahead of them. How could these disciples with extraordinary talent endure this? While they were angry, they secretly hated themselves. Chi. Old Snake approached as the jade horn on his head emitted an intense divine beam. It tore through the sky like a bolt of lightning and with a puff, he cleaved a person into two on the spot. Bright red blood splattered on the people beside him, immediately making them shudder in fear. "Ah!" A female cultivator screamed in horror. The cruel and bloody truth made them feel their own insignificance. In front of the powerful snake demon, they who had just embarked on the path of cultivation, were simply unable to withstand a single blow. Boom! The ground shook and the jade horn snake's eyes glowed red. It crushed through the forest and quickly closed in on everyone. Amidst the torment of fear, someone couldn't help but curse and hatefully said, "Damn it, how did that trash run so fast? He's almost out of sight. Damn trash, how can you run faster than us?" Everyone was so hateful that the roots of their teeth were itching. Their hearts were extremely unbalanced. The trash in their eyes seemed to be flying, stepping on the tips of the grass as he advanced. He was practically floating. Those two bastards. When I get the chance, I'll definitely hack them into pieces. Li Lin's exquisite face was covered in frost. There was anger and fear on her face, but there was nothing she could do. Although these people had extraordinary cultivation levels, they were far from being a match for the snake demon. As for Li Lin and Li Yun, although they had outstanding talent, they had only joined the Spirit Mausoleum Grotto Heaven for 3 years. Although their cultivation levels improved rapidly, they had yet to cultivate Divine Rainbow. They were unable to fly and could only run on the ground. Although their cultivation levels were much higher than Yi Fan and Pang Bo's, their bodies were far inferior to those of the duo who had consumed the holy fruit. Yi Fan and Pang Bo had undergone a complete metamorphosis. Their physiques were not something an ordinary cultivator could compare with. As such, they left the rest in the dust. Li Lin, Li Yun, and company naturally knew that the people the Jade Horn Snake hated the most were Yi Fan and Pang Bo. They must have plucked away the spirit herbs beside the snake cave, causing the snake demon to pursue them. These people constantly changed directions, not wishing to be on the same path as Yi Fan and Pang Bo. They wanted to shake off Old Snake. However, what left them in a frenzy was that Yi Fan and Pang Bo were like dog skin plaster. They were completely attached to them and were extremely fast. With a few whooshing sounds, they circled back and continued leading the way. The few of them were so infuriated that even Li Lin ignored her image as a beauty. She swallowed her pride and cursed, F***K. Pang and that trash Li Lin will remember you. Having been chased by the Jade Horn Snake, their lives were uncertain. Now Li Lin and company had repeatedly cursed them as trash. Even a clay figurine had a temper. Yi Fan cursed as well, F***K your grandma. Li, I'll remember you too, but not because I'm interested in you. You're like a washboard. Pang Bo turned around to add fuel to the fire. Washboard Li, if you have the time to curse us, why don't you save your strength to deal with the snake demon behind us? How infuriating. Li Lin was so angry that her body was trembling. However, she had no choice but to run with all her might. She did not dare to distract herself too much. Li Yun roared angrily from behind, "You two bastards, you are too wicked. I curse you to die a horrible death. F***K your grandma who's wicked. You have always wanted to get rid of the two of us. Now that we have met by chance, you deserve your bad luck." Li Lin, Li Yun and Han Feiyu were so infuriated that they could not speak. They felt like they had 8 lifetimes worth of bad luck to encounter these two people. Now their lives were hanging by a thread. Other than Li Lin, Li Yun and Han Feiyu, the others clearly could not take it. Some of them had a sobbing tone as they shouted at the front, "I say, junior brothers, who's your junior brother?" Yi Fan and Pang Bo were very displeased with the way they were addressed. "Wrong, I say, big brothers." Those people had sobbing tones as they shouted, "Especially that useless big brother, you run so fast, there's no need for you to follow us. Old man, hurry up and run further away, I beg you." Yi Fan had been chased for such a long time. He could lose his life here at any time. At this moment he did not have his usual gentleness. When he heard that, he immediately scolded, F***K your grandma who's the useless one? Pang Bo also turned around and shouted, "Didn't you guys want to get rid of the two of us? Now I'll let you guys have a taste of life hanging by a thread." After saying that, he sped up and sprinted. He was even faster than a rabbit, and in the blink of an eye, he had shaken off the few people far away. Plop. Among Li Lin's group, the cultivator at the back had a gloomy expression. After inhaling some snake venom, he was out of strength and fell to the ground. The jade horned snake rushed over, and its huge body directly crushed his body into minced meat. A string of blood splattered out and the scene was extremely bloody. Hiss hiss. The sound of the giant snake spitting out its tongue could be heard. Then a disciple was torn apart by an invisible force and flew backward. In an instant, he entered the jade horned snake's bloody mouth. Ah! He only had time to let out a frightened and urgent cry before it came to an abrupt stop. With a pew sound, a stream of blood flowed out from the old snake's dense white teeth. Then that person was swallowed alive into the snake's stomach. In fact, during the process of swallowing, that person's body had already melted away. This terrifying scene made everyone feel incomparably terrified. They felt a chill from head to toe. The distance was getting closer and closer. The jade-horned snake no longer spat out snake venom, nor did it shoot out divine light from the jade horn on its head. Instead, it just opened its bloody mouth and spat out its snake tongue. With an extremely terrifying suction force, it sucked people over and swallowed them into its stomach. Blood splattered. Another person was swallowed alive. Traces of blood flowed along its sharp teeth. In a blink of an eye, 5 people had lost their lives. Other than Yi Fan and Pang Bo, only Li Lin, Li Yun and Han Feiyu were left. Pang Bo and that trash. Just you wait. My granduncle will definitely make you suffer a fate worse than death. He will grind your bones to dust. Han Feiyu shouted in horror and anger. At that moment he was running at the back and was about to become Old Snake's next target. Old Snake spat out its 2-meter-long snake tongue and dripped a large amount of venom. It corroded the ground and produced wisps of white smoke. A pair of blood-colored eyes locked onto Han Feiyu. No! Han Feiyu cried out in horror. He felt his body lighten as an invisible force tore at him. He left the ground and flew towards Old Snake's gigantic mouth. At this critical juncture Han Feiyu conjured the azure wood seal. The heavy seal emitted a green light as wisps of green mist lingered around it. It smashed down with all its might. Pung! The azure wood seal struck Old Snake's head squarely, causing it to sway a little. However, it was not damaged in the slightest. Its horn shot out a divine beam, sending the azure wood seal flying. It landed heavily a distance away, pulverizing a pile of rocks. The azure wood seal was not destroyed. After all, it was a weapon that Han Feiyu's granduncle had personally refined for him. There were many Dao patterns engraved within the seal, and all sorts of powerful forces were set up. It was very difficult to truly destroy. Han Feiyu's cultivation level was insufficient, so he was unable to produce the seal's true might. He was unable to injure the jade-horned snake. Granduncle, save me. Han Feiyu, who had been sucked into the air by the snake demon, cried out in horror. At that moment, a jade pendant in front of his chest shimmered, forming a light screen. It froze him in midair, preventing Old Snake from swallowing him. Han Feiyu suddenly recalled that this was the jade pendant that his granduncle had exhorted him to carry with him at all times. From the looks of it, it was left for him to save his life in times of danger. On a distant cliff, a green beam suddenly shot out. A figure rode a divine rainbow and arrived in front of him in a blink of an eye. Old Snake seemed to be apprehensive as he quickly retreated, abandoning Han Feiyu in midair. Li Lin and Li Yun immediately revealed looks of delight. Han Feiyu even shouted, "Granduncle, quickly save me." The divine rainbow arrived with a green flash. A stooped elder with disheveled hair appeared. He grabbed Han Feiyu and landed on the ground with him. Li Lin and Li Yun hurriedly went forward to greet him. In the distance Yi Fan and Pang Bo also stopped. The two of them looked at each other and felt a bit uneasy. They wanted to run away, but they noticed that the old man was looking at them a few times, so they did not act rashly. If an expert who could control a divine rainbow locked onto them, it would be impossible for them to escape. The two did not move as they stood there quietly to watch. The elder was not tall. He was thin and, with his stooped body, he was no taller than 1.5 meters. His hair was disheveled and his snow-white hair covered his face. It was impossible to see his face clearly, but one could see that his hands were extremely withered. His skin was wrapped around his bones, like the black claws of a bird. "Elder Han, it's fortunate that you arrived in time. If not, we would have died here." Li Lin and Li Yun went forward to greet him. At the same time they glared at Yi Fan and Pang Bo viciously. "You are doomed this time." As for Han Feiyu, he was gnashing his teeth and constantly whispering something to the elder. From his expression, it was obvious that he wanted to harm Yi Fan and Pang Bo. His eyes were cold and sinister, filled with hatred. The withered elder ignored the three people in front of him. He looked at the jade-horned snake in front of him and constantly nodded. His voice was low and hoarse as if he would stop breathing at any time. "Not bad, very good. The jade horn of a snake spirit is a good material for refining medicine." The jade-horned snake was already intelligent. It sensed danger and rapidly retreated. It constantly flicked its tongue in an attempt to escape. At this moment, the disheveled elder floated forward like a ghost. He had no intention of letting it go. Old Snake opened his mouth and spat out a poisonous mist that instantly drowned him. However, a green light flashed and a mysterious brilliance appeared outside Elder Han's body, completely blocking the snake poison. Chi! The jade horn on Old Snake's head burst out with a blazing divine light. Several blinding divine beams shot out one after another, piercing towards Elder Han. Dang! 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 The sound of divine weapons clashing rang out. Elder Han held a green wooden ruler in his hand and destroyed all the divine beams, causing them to scatter in the forest. The jade-horned snake sensed danger and quickly turned to escape. It wanted to leave this place. However, Elder Han did not give it the chance. 12 green beams suddenly rushed out of his withered body. 12 green wooden swords quickly enlarged and stabbed into the ground, forming a cage that trapped the jade-horned snake inside. Automatically remove your jade horn. If you want to destroy it, I will skin you alive. Elder Han's words were eerie. His eyes were cold as he stared at the jade-horned snake. The snake spirit seemed to be extremely angry. Its eyes were filled with an ominous glint and its jade horn was even more resplendent. It wanted to gather all its divine power for one last attack. It was clear that Elder Han would not let it use this attack. The 12 green wooden swords emitted a faint green light. The patterns carved on them were like snakes and insects wriggling. Then the 12 wooden swords emitted a green light and a murderous aura as they slashed towards the center. PFFF. 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 Fresh blood sprayed out as the 12 green wooden swords cut the jade-horned snake into dozens of pieces on the spot. The huge snake's body spewed out blood that flowed like a small river. A fishy stench assailed the nostrils as a bloody mist floated up. At the same time, a poisonous mist pervaded the air. In the distance, Yi Fan and Pang Bo drew in a cold breath. Han Feiyu's granduncle was too terrifying. He killed a snake spirit with just a wave of his hand. His unfathomable cultivation made people tremble in fear. One had to know that Old Snake's body was extremely tyrannical. It could easily crush towering ancient trees and crush huge mountain rocks. The snake's body was as hard as diamond and divine metal, but it could not block the 12 green wooden swords. It was instantly killed on the spot. Fresh blood flowed like a river and the ground was covered in it. This disheveled and stooped Elder Han made people feel horrified. Chapter 53. Green lights flashed. The 12 green wooden swords were soaked in the snake blood as if they were alive. They seemed to be absorbing the essence of the blood. The green wooden swords became more translucent. They lost some of their simplicity and became more glossy as if they had turned into green jade swords. However, the light that flowed out was a little strange. It looked like a ghostly fire. Finally, after a few swishing sounds, it flew back into Elder Han's shriveled body. He walked forward with the greenwood ruler in his hand. He came to the bloody ground and gently knocked the jade horn off. Then he rummaged through the snake's corpse and plucked out a huge snake gallbladder. It was dripping with blood. He used his bird claw-like fingers to break the gallbladder and squeeze the bile into his mouth. Finally, he stuffed the gallbladder into his mouth as well. He chewed and swallowed. Sigh, even though it's bitter for my body that's about to lose its vitality, it's a great supplement. The gallbladder of a snake spirit is not commonly seen. His words were faint and eerie. Even Li Lin and Li Yun felt a bit scared. Then he started to refine the snake's blood and poison. He didn't waste anything. Finally, he put all the materials into a green light and disappeared. You guys are too daring to come here. Elder Han's hair was messy and his face was covered. However, one could imagine his gloomy expression. His voice was cold. Not to mention you guys, even the powerful warriors with the Spring of God wouldn't dare to enter the depths of the ruins. Great uncle, I know I was wrong. Han Feiyu lowered his head and didn't dare to explain. He seemed to be very afraid of Elder Han. Li Lin and Li Yun also lowered their heads. They didn't dare to look at the old man. Although you're a little clever and want to take advantage of the time when the birds and beasts are escaping to come in, you've forgotten one thing. In this world, everything depends on strength. If you don't reach absolute heights, even if you have some tricks, it'll be useless. Then Elder Han's tone became calmer. There is a great change in the depths of the ruins. Even I have to be careful. Otherwise, my life will be in danger. Okay, you guys leave now and don't ever come back. Yes. Even though the three of them agreed, they didn't leave immediately. They glanced at the direction of Yi Fan and Pang Bo with undisguised murderous intentions. Hurry up and leave. Although Elder Han's hair was disheveled and covered his face at this moment, 2 rays of light shot out from his hair. Immediately, the three of them felt an icy chill. They did not dare to stay any longer and quickly walked into the forest. Elder Han walked towards Yi Fan and Pang Bo. His body was as withered as wood, and his black clothes seemed to be wrapped around a short bamboo pole. Coupled with his loose white hair, he looked gloomy and terrifying. Like a specter, he didn't make a single sound. His feet didn't touch the ground as he floated forward, emitting the smell of death. Yi Fan and Pang Bo immediately became nervous. This skinny old man was too sinister. The two of them felt their scalps go numb. They weren't in the spirit ruin grotto heaven right now. If the old man wanted to capture them to refine pills, they wouldn't be able to get help even if they cried for help. Elder Han's feet did not touch the ground as he approached. The cold laughter that came out of his mouth was like the cry of an owl, causing one's hair to stand on end. This was not the sound of a living person. To be able to escape from the mouth of the jade-horned snake and pick the jade serpent orchid, not bad. He nodded repeatedly while staring at Yi Fan and Pang Bo. His white hair shot out 2 rays of ruthlessness as he constantly sized up Yi Fan and Pang Bo. The two of them felt uncomfortable being praised like this, especially when he said the word, "not bad." It didn't feel like he was praising their performance, but more like he was examining their bodies. Yi Fan and Pang Bo felt their hair stand on end. This ghost-like Elder Han was at the end of his lifespan and was thinking of a way to refine the Yang return pill. Staring at them like this made their hair stand on end. "Greetings, Elder Han." Yi Fan and Pang Bo came forward to greet him. There was no way to escape at this moment. The old man could control a divine rainbow and catch up to them in an instant. "You two seem to be a little afraid of me. There's no need to be like this. I actually like young people, especially young people full of life and vitality." Elder Han's voice was low and hoarse. He took a few steps forward and looked at Pang Bo. Then his gaze landed on Yi Fan. It was incomparably hot, as if he was looking at his own belongings. Yi Fan almost directly punched out. Pang Bo also couldn't hold it in anymore and was about to attack. However, at this moment, Elder Han suddenly patted Yi Fan's shoulder. Then, like a ghost, he floated backwards and left the two of them. "I have high hopes for you too. I have high hopes for you. Cultivate well from now on." His words were powerless and seemed lifeless. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared in front of the two of them and flew into the depths of the ruins. "What does this old thing mean?" Pang Bo revealed a suspicious expression. Just now, he thought that Elder Han was going to attack. He didn't think that he would leave just like that. "This old thing." Yi Fan's expression was not very good. He cursed in a low voice. He didn't even bother to hide his naked gaze. "He seems to be treating me as his private property. Damn it, I curse him to be trapped in the depths of the ruins until he dies." Pang Bo suggested, "Let's quickly leave this place before that old thing does anything. The farther, the better. It's the same whether we escape or not." He didn't attack directly because he was worried about Elder Wu Qingfeng. But looking at his attitude, it seems that everything is under his control. I don't know what he wants to do. In the distant forest, Han Feiyu was puzzled. He originally thought that his great-uncle was going to directly capture Yi Fan to refine medicine. He didn't think that he would only stop for a moment and then float away. Li Lin and Li Yun were gritting their teeth. Seeing that Elder Han had already left, they discussed in low voices, wanting to directly end the lives of Yi Fan and Pang Bo. Pang Bo is an immortal seedling. He most likely has Elder Wu Qingfeng's imprint on him. If we kill them, I'm afraid he will immediately find out that we did it. In the end, the three of them left angrily. They suppressed their killing intent and didn't attack. At this time, a divine rainbow streaked across the sky, rushing into the depths of the ruins. "It's Elder Wu Qingfeng." Yi Fan and Pang Bo looked at each other with joy on their faces. At this moment, the depths of the ruins were undoubtedly very dangerous. But Yi Fan and Pang Bo didn't retreat, they chose to continue forward. "We won't enter the depths of the ruins. We will search in the depths of the ruins. Maybe we can find a few spirit herbs like the jade serpent orchid." The two of them felt that the danger was concentrated in the depths of the ruins. A shocking change had happened there. The other areas should be relatively safe. The mountain forest was quiet. After walking forward for another 10 miles, Yi Fan and Pang Bo saw many foundation stones and rubble. Even the vegetation couldn't completely cover up these ruins. And during this process, they finally confirmed that not all the vicious birds and beasts had escaped. They saw tyrannical creatures that weren't any weaker than the jade-horned snake in a few areas. They were all hiding in their caves, restless and uneasy. Dong. At this time, a muffled sound came from the depths of the ruins again. Yi Fan and Pang Bo instantly felt their hearts tremble. It was as if something had clawed at their hearts and they felt a sharp pain. The two of them had physiques that far surpassed ordinary people, but they still felt uncomfortable. They staggered back a few steps before stabilizing themselves. Their faces were pale, and they both felt somewhat frightened. "Just what is that thing? Did you notice that the interval between these muffled sounds is getting shorter and shorter?" Not only that, the two of them also felt an incomparably majestic aura of life coming from the depths of the ruins. "What do you think?" Pang Bo asked. Yi Fan shook his head and said, "I have a very absurd thought. I feel like some kind of tyrannical creature is slowly awakening after countless years of slumber." Pang Bo revealed a shocked expression and said, "You can't be trying to say that that muffled sound is the sound of its heartbeat, right?" At this time, the sound of breaking air rang out incessantly. More than a dozen divine rainbows cut through the sky and rushed into the depths of the ruins. Chapter 54. It seems like the elders of the Spirit Ruin Wonderland have been alerted and are on their way here. At this moment, the sky had already darkened and the stars were twinkling in the sky. The two of them traveled for a few more miles and unknowingly arrived at a desolate area. Not even a blade of grass grew here. It was completely scorched earth with only cracked cornerstones and broken tiles. There was nothing else. There was a mysterious aura in the night with a faint black mist lingering in the air. It's been thousands of years, no, tens of thousands of years. Why haven't any plants grown in these ruins? It's really strange. It can be called a barren land where even birds don't shit. Pang Bo muttered in dissatisfaction. He was feeling a little thirsty and couldn't even pick some wild fruits to satisfy his hunger. Just as he finished speaking, a huge force suddenly slammed into his body. He staggered and fell into the darkness with a plop. Yi Fan was dumbfounded and couldn't believe his eyes. Pang Bo jumped up and turned around to look. He immediately felt his scalp go numb and quickly retreated. Right in front of him was a cold corpse. It was wrapped in old skin and bones like dried firewood. It was actually a dried corpse. What's going on? Where did this corpse come from? Pang Bo was a little scared. Anyone would feel uneasy after being smashed by a dried corpse for no reason. Yi Fan was also bewildered. He didn't see how the corpse appeared. They constantly looked around. The scorched ruins were empty. Apart from the rubble on the ground, there was nothing else. However, the more it was so, the more uneasy they felt. This was an ancient land that had been abandoned for countless years. Perhaps there really was something unclean here. The sky grew darker and the stars dimmed. The surroundings of the ruins were pitch black with a faint mist lingering in the air. Why is it so gloomy? It's getting colder. Pang Bo felt a little guilty. He felt a chill run down his spine and said, "Where did this corpse come from? Let's leave this place quickly." Yi Fan felt a little uneasy. This place wasn't suitable for them to stay for long. What kind of shitty place is this? Why is it so strange? Pang Bo whispered as a chill ran down his spine. Bang. Right at this moment, Pang Bo was smashed to the ground once more. He crawled up with a roll and there was another dried corpse beside him. Who is so inconsiderate as to throw corpses around? This joke was not funny at all. The two of them felt a chill run down their spines. They had goosebumps all over their bodies as they continuously looked around. Two withered corpses were lying on the ground. Some clothes were stuck to their bodies, which would turn into powder at the slightest touch. It was unknown how long they had been there. What on earth are you? Come out. Bang. Another corpse appeared, knocking Pang Bo away. Damn you. Do you think I'm easy to bully? While Pang Bo was frightened, he also felt a little indignant. Yi Fan was right beside him, but he was not hit at all. What the hell is this thing? Hurry up and come out. Yi Fan shouted. Boom. A great earthquake suddenly occurred in the ancient ruins, sending Yi Fan flying away. Pang Bo was also battered and exhausted, rolling far away. Bang, bang, bang. This time, not only Pang Bo but also Yi Fan was hit again and again. Ancient corpses fell from the sky one after another, knocking the two of them away. If it was an ordinary body of flesh and blood, then perhaps their bones would have been broken by now. However, the two of them had extraordinary physiques, so they were not in danger. Dozens of corpses appeared on the ground. This place was very gloomy and cold. It was as if they had fallen into an ice house. The two of them were scared and they didn't know why all of this was happening. Whoosh. At this moment, Yi Fan felt all the hairs on his back stand up. It was as if something was approaching at lightning speed. He didn't even turn his head and rushed forward. Then he quickly moved his body sideways and dodged to the side as fast as lightning. Two faint green lights brushed past his body and stopped dozens of meters away. They were like ghost fires that constantly pulsated. At the same time, the ruins suddenly became as dark as ink. One couldn't even see their fingers in front of them. The stars in the sky were submerged and they could no longer be seen. Haunted. Pang Bo subconsciously touched his side. Unfortunately, he didn't bring the bronze plaque of the Great Thunderclap Temple. At this moment, besides the two faint green lights, they couldn't see anything else. A black fog had completely covered the entire ruins. The two green lights were as big as a wash basin. They looked like two ghost fires, but they also looked like a pair of huge eyes. The gloomy energy in the black fog was very dense. There are really dirty things here. Yi Fan and Pang Bo suddenly became nervous. Whoosh. This time the two green lights moved very fast. They arrived in the blink of an eye, and they still rushed towards Yi Fan. Pang Bo wanted to help, but he was sent flying by 4 or 5 dried corpses. The speed of the green lights was getting faster and faster. They completely locked onto Yi Fan, and they suddenly moved to the left and right. Finally, a brilliant light flashed, and the two green lights disappeared without a trace. They all submerged into his body. Yi Fan. Pang Bo screamed, but there was no way to stop all this. At the same time, Yi Fan felt that the sea of bitterness was ice-cold, as if it had been frozen. He hurriedly used the mysterious method recorded in the Taoist scripture. In an instant, a little golden light bloomed. Boom boom boom. The sound of a tsunami broke out. Yi Fan's sea of bitterness turned into a golden ocean. It surged and rolled the two green lights high into the sky. Boom. With a violent shake, the two green lights seemed to be frightened. They rushed out of Yi Fan's sea of bitterness and hid far away. At the same time, Yi Fan's sea of bitterness instantly calmed down. A golden light the size of a soybean was fixed there like a magic lamp. Whoosh. The green lights were extremely fast. After rushing out of Yi Fan's sea of bitterness, they went straight to Pang Bo. In the blink of an eye, they submerged into his body. Pang Bo only had time to curse before he fell straight to the ground. This surprised Yi Fan and he quickly rushed over. Pang Bo, what happened to you? However, without waiting for him to come close, Pang Bo turned over and sat up. His eyes became a deep green. He instantly stood up and let out a low roar like a wild beast. He coldly looked at Yi Fan for a few minutes before shifting his gaze away. What the hell are you? Leave his body. Yi Fan shouted in a low voice. Boom. At this moment, the wind blew violently. The entire ruins were filled with sand and stones. Black fog surged. Pang Bo stood there with his disheveled hair. Then he suddenly strode away. The dozens of ancient corpses around him all floated up and followed him into the depths of the ruins. In an instant, the place became clear again. The stars once again appeared in the sky. From afar, one could see Pang Bo flying away. The surrounding black fog pervaded the air. Dust and sand rolled. He wrapped around the dozens of ancient corpses and gradually disappeared into the distance. Pang Bo! Yi Fan shouted and chased after him. However, Pang Bo's current speed was too fast. It was comparable to the elders riding their divine rainbows. He moved as fast as lightning and disappeared from Yi Fan's line of sight in the blink of an eye. After Pang Bo's body was taken over, it was hard to tell whether he was dead or alive. At this moment, Yi Fan was extremely anxious, but he simply couldn't catch up. There was nothing in front of him. Yi Fan had no other choice and began to move deeper into the ruins. At this moment, he didn't have the time to consider how dangerous it was. Late at night, Yi Fan didn't know how many li he had traveled. Finally, he was close to the deepest part of the ruins. The muffled sound became even more powerful and would resound every once in a while. Each time, it was like a beating on one's heart. Yi Fan's complexion was pale as he staggered forward. Even with his physique, he could barely hold on. If it was an ordinary person, their heart would have already exploded. The trees here gradually became sparse and the number of dilapidated buildings increased. The spirit energy also became denser and denser. This place was even more like a treasure than the spirit ruin grotto. Boom! Another muffled sound rang out. Yi Fan climbed up a tall mountain and looked forward. The so-called deepest part of the ruins was right in front of him. The ancient buildings were densely packed. Although they had already collapsed and turned into ruins, one could imagine how grand they were in the past. And the most shocking thing was that the endless chain of ancient buildings actually surrounded a volcano. The flames there rushed into the heavens, and there was actually surging magma in the crater. Even though it didn't flow out, it was already very frightening, burning half the sky red. Countless majestic ancient buildings surrounded this volcano, giving people a very strange feeling. At this moment, Yi Fan was extremely shocked because he saw an inconceivable scene. Along with the surging magma, there was a sparkling and magnificent ancient palace floating up and down in the crater. Boom! The muffled sound actually came from inside the volcano. Or to be more precise, it came from the ancient palace floating in the magma. It was shining brightly and incomparably translucent with an aura of time flowing within it. At the same time, there were divine lights circulating around it. Among the ancient buildings below the volcano was a 5-meter-long divine bird. Its entire body was flickering with golden light as arcs of lightning curled around its body. This was the lightning bird that fought against the scaled ape king 2 days ago. It appeared here unscathed, so one could easily imagine the scaled ape king's fate. The lightning bird was a true super ferocious bird. Elder Wu Qingfeng had said that even he would have to take a detour if he came across one. It dominated the building area, and no other creature dared to approach it. Of course, it wasn't the only one here. There were close to 20 ferocious birds and beasts scattered among the other buildings. They were all strange species and most of them had never been seen before. For example, there was a silver-winged centipede that was as thick as an arm and as long as 2 meters. Its entire body was shining as if it was cast from silver. It quietly crouched among the ruins, and no other creature dared to take even half a step closer. There was also a ferocious beast with a bull's body and a lion's head. Its entire body was covered in azure scales, and it was more than 10 meters tall. It stood like a small mountain in the ruins and occupied an area of its own. Nearly 20 such terrifying creatures were enough to show how terrifying the depths of the ruins were. At this moment, they had surrounded the volcano and were nervously watching the floating ancient palace. At this time, Yi Fan finally found Pang Bo standing among the ruins below the volcano. He let out a long sigh. At this moment, Elder Wu Qingfeng and a few other old men had surrounded him. Even though they didn't attack, they had trapped him. There were nearly 20 old men from the Spirit Ruin Paradise, which was about the same number as the ferocious birds and beasts. It could be said that both sides had similar strength. That is, suddenly Yi Fan realized that he had underestimated a few people. There was a creature on the volcano as well. It was a 2-meter-tall man. His arms were covered in scales, and under the reflection of the magma, they shone brilliantly. There was also a young girl beside him. She didn't have arms and only had a pair of golden wings. In addition, her long hair was also like golden threads that flickered under the light. Sitting on the same level as them was a giant serpent with horns on its head and sharp claws on its abdomen. It had completely exceeded the scope of a serpent and could already be considered a legendary flood dragon. Yi Fan's heart trembled. He immediately realized that this was a legendary great demon that could already transform into a human. There's more? Yi Fan was startled once again. He discovered that there were 3 other existences that seemed to be great demons on the other side of the volcano. One of them was extremely tall and sturdy. He was 3 meters tall, and even though he had a complete human body, he had 2 bull horns on his head. At the same time, Yi Fan also discovered 4 or 5 real humans. One of them seemed to be the sect master of the Spirit Ruin Paradise that he had seen from afar before. There were also 4 white-haired old men beside him. They were also not far from the crater of the volcano. They were completely divided according to their strength. There were more than 10 ferocious birds and beasts below the volcano, as well as a group of elders from the Spirit Ruin Paradise. Above the volcano were existences of a higher level. Their goal was exactly the same. They all came for the ancient palace in the magma. All the experts were nervously watching the crater of the volcano. The magma was boiling there and the ancient palace was flickering with divine splendor. It was as if the power of time was circulating, giving people a primordial aura. Chapter 55. The elders of the Spirit Ruin Wonderland attacked Pang Bo. One of the elders' body emitted a red light that turned into a huge scarlet net. Each strand of the net was sparkling with a bright red radiance. It looked like it was refined from a red agate as it flew towards Pang Bo. At this moment, Pang Bo's expression was lifeless. Only his eyes flickered with a green light. He stretched out his hands to support the sky in an attempt to tear the red net apart. Another elder's body emitted rays of purple light as a purple-gold 8 trigrams mirror appeared in his hand. He flipped his hand and shone it towards Pang Bo. Purple light radiated in all directions as it shrouded Pang Bo and locked him in place. A misty purple aura circulated around him. Swoosh! The red net fell smoothly, trapping Pang Bo inside and trapping him firmly. At this moment, Elder Wu Qingfeng stepped forward and used his finger like a sword. Brilliant rays shot out in all directions as he used his divine force to seal Pang Bo. Yi Fan was most worried about Pang Bo. He heaved a sigh of relief when he saw the elders capture him. The old man was very calm and even revealed a trace of a smile in the end. There shouldn't be any big problems. Boom! A muffled sound came from the crater again. This time Yi Fan was already prepared. He circulated the mysterious technique recorded in the Tao scripture. The golden specks of light in the sea of bitterness immediately overflowed with divine splendor and flowed towards his heart. In an instant he felt much better. It wasn't as painful as the previous times. Yi Fan carefully observed and found that the super ferocious birds and beasts involuntarily trembled a few times. The elders of the Spirit Ruin Wonderland also stiffened as they were all affected. This surprised him quite a bit. After eating the holy fruit and drinking the divine spring, he was indeed reborn. Not to mention his cultivation, the wheel of life, and the sea of bitterness, he didn't seem to be much weaker than these elders in terms of physique. Boom! 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 Another 3 muffled sounds rang out in a short interval. The magma in the crater surged violently as rays of blazing light soared into the sky. The dark night seemed to have turned into day. At this moment, magma surged, flowing out from the volcanic crater. The brilliant ancient palace directly floated up, releasing a powerful aura of life. On the volcano, the sect master and the 4 supreme elders of the spirit ruins Utopia were glowing as they slowly approached the volcano. On the other side, several great demons in human form also stepped forward at the same time, fearlessly rushing out of the magma. Their eyes stared unblinkingly at the ancient temple until they reached the mouth of the volcano. Only then did they glance at the human cultivators. Among them, the man whose arms were covered in scales shouted at the sect master of the spirit ruins Utopia, "Human, you've gone too far. The primordial ruins has been split into 2. You already have the spirit ruins Utopia, yet you've come to our territory to fight for the immortal trove. Are you trying to start a war?" Not far away, the 3-meter-tall man with a pair of bull horns on his head also shouted in a deep voice, "If you want to start a war, then go ahead and try touching this ancient temple." The sect master and the 4 supreme elders of the spirit ruins Utopia weren't afraid. One of them stepped forward and said, "This ruin was originally left behind by our human race. Now that a great treasure has appeared, it's reasonable for us to come here to search for opportunities." "What's wrong with that?" "This ruin is our residence, so we naturally can't allow you to come here to snatch the treasure." The armless, winged and blonde girl shouted coldly, "If you insist on touching it, then don't blame us for being impolite. This is the ruin left behind by our human race. You're just borrowing this place, so how can you occupy it?" The sect master of the spirit ruins Utopia wasn't afraid. Although his tone was calm, it emitted an intimidating aura. "My WRM ancestor left a message. This isn't the homeland of your human race, but the imperial capital of the demon race at its peak. Everything here has nothing to do with you." The old WRM with a horn on his head and sharp claws on his abdomen might not have taken human form, but he could speak. His strength wasn't any weaker than the others, but he wasn't good at transforming into a beast. "Impossible. All the buildings here are built in the human style. What does it have to do with the demon race?" one of the supreme elders of the spirit ruins Utopia questioned. Both sides were arguing and neither side was willing to give in. Everything was for the ancient temple in the magma. Boom. Muffled sounds came from the ancient temple from time to time. Even the few great demons and the sect master of the spirit ruins Utopia couldn't bear the pressure at such a close distance. Their faces were unsightly. The boiling magma was abnormally red and kept gushing out like blood. The ancient temple slowly rose up and was about to leave the crater of the volcano. One of the great demons was about to step forward but was stopped by the old WRM. "We've already waited for several days. Do you still care about this little bit of time? Let it break the primordial restriction on its own. Don't interfere in case something unexpected happens." Demon script, it's the script of our demon race. At this time, the 3-meter-tall giant with 2 horns suddenly shouted, "Look, it's the demon race's imperial script. It must have been left behind by a demon emperor." The entire ancient temple was refined from 5-colored divine jade. It was sparkling and sparkling. Many ancient characters were engraved at the base. Some were shaped like dragons and phoenixes, while others were shaped like black tortoises and cheilants. These were the demon race's imperial scripts from the primordial era. "Humans, what else do you have to say? Leave now. This was left behind by a demon emperor from the primordial era. It has nothing to do with you." At this moment, the ancient temple flickered with divine light and exuded a majestic aura. 5-colored divine splendor lingered around it. It was truly extraordinary. The spirit ruin Wonderland sect master's expression changed after hearing this. Then he stared at the ancient temple carefully. Finally, he seemed to have thought of something and revealed an excited expression. "I know. This is the burial place of the last demon emperor of the eastern wasteland." The great demons' expressions changed after hearing this. They all stared at the ancient temple and carefully observed it. They were bewildered. The old WRM stood up and stretched half of his body forward. His expression was solemn as he said in a trembling voice, "This is indeed the tomb of our demon emperor. It is exactly the same as the ancestor's description." No one could have imagined that the ancient palace made of 5-colored divine jade was actually the tomb of the last monarch of the demon race. It was hidden deep under the volcano, and only today when the seal was loosened and the magma surged up did it see the light of day again. The last demon emperor of the eastern wasteland who unified the demon race. It's him. It must be him. The spirit ruin Wonderland sect master muttered to himself in a trance. The great demons present immediately felt justified. The old WRM said, "It's good that you know. This is the tomb of the last demon emperor. It has nothing to do with you humans. Leave now." The other great demons also erupted with unparalleled power. Monstrous demonic aura surged into the sky and covered the entire starry sky. This place was filled with a murderous aura. The Spirit Ruin Wonderland sect master came back to his senses. He seemed to be even more agitated than the great demons. He said with a trembling voice, "Although this is the tomb of the demon emperor, there is a great treasure of the human race here. Today we should take it back." Nonsense. How can there be a great treasure of the human race in the tomb of our demon emperor? You're clearly trying to steal the tomb of our demon emperor. The great demons were enraged. They stepped forward and blocked the Spirit Ruin Wonderland sect master, ready to attack at any time. The Spirit Ruin Wonderland sect master calmed down and said, "What I said is the truth. In the past, the last demon emperor of the Eastern Wasteland united the demon race, which had been divided for tens of thousands of years. He posed a great threat to the human race in the Eastern Wasteland. A great treasure of the Eastern Wasteland was lost at that time. Legend has it that it was taken by the demon emperor. Also, the famous immortal scripture in the Eastern Wasteland, the Tao scripture, was also split up at that time. A very important volume was lost. Later on, there was evidence that all of this was done by the demon emperor. Come to think of it, the great treasure of the Eastern Wasteland and the most important volume of the Tao scripture are both here. They should see the light of day again today." As soon as he said that, all the monsters were stunned. Then their eyes shone with a scorching light. Even if the monster race could not cultivate the most profound Taoist scripture of the human race, the Tao scripture, they had made up their minds to stay. As for the great treasure of the human race, if it really existed, they naturally wouldn't let it go. The Spirit Ruin Wonderland sect master didn't show the slightest fear. He actually took a big step forward while facing the great demons. Boom. The ancient palace made of 5-colored divine jade let out another dull sound. The power of the seal was quickly dissipating. It had almost completely risen to the mouth of the volcano. Multicolored light flickered. The tomb of the last demon emperor of the Eastern Wasteland was about to fully reappear in the world. In the palace under the volcano, the lightning bird and the other super beasts, as well as the elders of the Spirit Ruin Wonderland, couldn't help but slowly move up the mountain. In the distance, Yifan witnessed all of this. He felt very uneasy, but he didn't have the strength to fight for it. He could only watch quietly. Chapter 56. A divine rainbow rushed into the sky from the ancient buildings below the volcano. Divine splendor shone resplendently, illuminating the night sky as it flew towards the mountain peak Yifan was at. This immediately left him shocked, thinking that an expert had discovered him. He held his breath, hiding behind an enormous boulder without moving. Swoosh! The divine rainbow rushed over. Elder Wu Qingfeng landed on the mountain and placed Pang Bo in a hidden place. Then he soared into the sky and met up with the others. They advanced towards the top of the volcano together. Yifan came out from behind the boulder and quickly walked towards them. At this moment, Pang Bo had been sealed by the elders of the Spirit Ruin Wonderland. His eyes were closed and his body was stiff, unable to move at all. There was an azure aura around his body and his complexion was not normal. There was a faint azure radiance flowing under his skin. What on earth entered his body? Yifan didn't dare to touch Pang Bo's body since it was sealed by the elders and there was a fluctuation of divine power. At this moment, the atmosphere at the mouth of the volcano was extremely tense. The human cultivators and the demons were confronting each other. Neither side was willing to give in. The old flood dragon, who was covered in flickering scarlet scales, stood up like a blood-red wall, giving off a shocking sense of power. He shouted, "People of the Spirit Ruins Paradise, do you really want to break the peace that has lasted for hundreds of years and start a war with us?" The master of the Spirit Ruin Wonderland argued, "The supreme treasure of the human race must be taken back. How can we let it fall into the hands of the demons? As for the immortal scripture, the Tao scripture, it's time to see the light of day again. It has been lost for tens of thousands of years and should be taken back by the human race." That demon girl with a pair of golden wings was beautiful and moving. Her voice was also very pleasant to listen to and had a magnetic charm to it. However, it was also very domineering and full of killing intent. She said, "This is the tomb of my demon race's great emperor, but you guys just had to drag out the human race's precious treasure and the Tao scripture. You guys clearly want to rob the demon race's tomb, yet you still have to find such an excuse. If you don't mind fighting, then come forward." The master of the Spirit Ruin Wonderland didn't feel guilty at all. He was also very unyielding. Whether it's true or not, we'll know once we open the ancient temple. If we don't have the Eastern Barren human race's supreme treasure and the Tao scripture, we will immediately offer our humble apologies and accept our punishment. If you have those two things, you can let us take them away. How about that? This way we can avoid a fight and benefit both sides. The 3-meter-tall giant man with 2 horns on his head spoke with a voice that was like the vibration of a bronze bell, causing everyone's eardrums to buzz. He said, "If you don't have the precious treasure and the Tao scripture that you mentioned, you will definitely pester me endlessly and insist that the other items left behind by the Demon Emperor are those 2 things. I know you people the best. You people are good at calling a deer a horse, confusing right and wrong and inverting black and white. The tomb of the monster race great emperor is not something you can desecrate." The atmosphere was getting more and more tense. Neither side was willing to take even half a step back. It seemed that this battle was inevitable. "You great demons have gone too far. No matter what, we must take back the sacred item that belongs to the Eastern Wasteland human clan." The Spirit Ruins Grotto Heaven's sect master was determined and took another step forward. "You forced us to make a move." The beautiful golden-haired girl spread her wings. Tens of thousands of golden divine feathers shot towards the Spirit Ruins Grotto Heaven's sect master like golden divine arrows. The Spirit Ruins Grotto Heaven's sect master waved his sleeves. Immediately, a misty purple mist filled the air and surged like a raging sea, blocking the countless divine feathers in front of him. "Kill?" The demon girl's voice was cold. Divine light blossomed from her body. Golden divine feathers covered the sky and the earth. The dazzling light connected together like a golden net that covered the sky. It dispersed the purple mist and covered the Spirit Ruins Grotto Heaven's sect master. A purple cauldron rushed out from the Spirit Ruins Grotto Heaven's sect master's body. Suddenly, purple mist soared into the sky. The purple divine radiance shook the surroundings. All of the golden divine feathers were broken and turned into golden light that filled the sky with a bang. It formed a blazing golden energy flow that was incomparably dazzling. The golden-haired girl's expression was cold. She spread her wings and a pair of golden divine swords flew out. They were crystal clear and dazzling. The golden light that lingered around them was like a burning flame that slashed towards the Spirit Ruins Grotto Heaven's sect master. The Spirit Ruins Grotto Heaven's sect master stretched out his hand and the purple cauldron beside him suddenly soared into the sky. Endless purple flames gushed out and shrouded the 2 golden divine swords. They burned fiercely and wanted to refine them on the spot. Boom! The 2 divine swords were like 2 lightning bolts. They collided with the purple brilliance that filled the sky, causing the sky to tremble slightly. "Kill? Stop them." At this moment the other great demons also took action. Demonic chi soared into the sky. Killing intent soared into the sky. Demonic energy surged violently like the waves of the vast sea. At the same time, the 4 supreme elders of the Spirit Ruins Grotto Heaven also took a step forward. The divine spring in the bitter sea boiled and their bodies shone with dazzling divine light, illuminating the entire sky and dispersing the demonic chi. The 4 experts took action at the same time. Demonic chi crisscrossed and divine splendor soared into the sky. Several great demons and human experts fought one after another. Rays of light shot out in all directions and all kinds of weapons danced in the sky, making the night sky as bright as day. The divine drum, immortal lamp, copper cauldron, golden sword, 8 trigrams mirror, blood saber, dragon scale blade and others seemed to have a life of their own. They swallowed and spat out divine light, squeezing together and colliding with each other. Clanging sounds rang out incessantly. Every time they collided, it was a contest of divine power, causing the sky to tremble slightly. At this time the lightning bird, which was shining with golden light and flickering with lightning, and the silver centipede, which seemed to be cast from silver, and other super beasts had also arrived at the mouth of the volcano. At the same time Wu Qingfeng and the other elders of the Spirit Ruins Grotto Heaven also arrived from the other side to confront these super beasts. The battle between them was about to begin. In the distance Yi Fan found it hard to remain calm. As he watched from afar, the great battle occurring above the mouth of the volcano left him dazzled and filled with yearning. It would be impossible for Yi Fan to not have any thoughts towards the Monster Emperor's tomb. But he was powerless to do so. He very much wanted to obtain the Tao scripture. This was an immortal scripture that shook the entire Eastern Wastelands. It was an extremely important scroll that was valued by the monster race Great Emperor, so it was no trifling matter. It was something he urgently needed because he lacked the follow-up cultivation method. As for the so-called great treasure of the Eastern Wastelands, Yi Fan didn't know much about it. He didn't feel anything towards it, thus he wasn't moved by it. Only the Tao scripture aroused an incomparable desire in him. Although he had obtained an ancient scripture from the ancient bronze coffin, no matter how he looked at it, the several hundred ancient characters that were engraved in his heart didn't seem to describe specific cultivation methods. Rather, it was more like a general outline, it wasn't something he could comprehend right now. The Tao scripture's fame shook the world. It was a legendary immortal scripture. For tens of thousands of years, in the vast and boundless eastern wastelands, there were only several ancient scriptures that could compare with it. But none of them had ever been able to completely surpass it. The Tao scripture recorded mysterious cultivation methods. From cultivating the wheel of life and opening the sea of bitterness, to connecting the divine bridge between heaven and earth, to reaching the other shore, to entering the next mystic realm within one's body, everything was explained in detail. This was a transcendent immortal scripture that Yi Fan desperately needed. Thump, thump, thump. At this time dull sounds constantly sounded out as if a heart was fiercely beating. A five-colored brilliance shot into the skies from the crater of the volcano, completely dispersing the monstrous demonic energy and the vast fluctuations of divine power in the skies. Crimson magma boiled, constantly gushing out from the crater of the volcano, burning half the sky red. That grand ancient temple bobbed up and down, shaking in the magma. It shined brilliantly, its entire body sparkling and translucent. The aura of endless years flowed through it. Bang! With a final violent tremor, the ancient temple slowly rose up from the magma. Complex and mysterious demonic runes were faintly discernible, but they could no longer imprison the ancient temple. It floated up. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The volcano shook, and the grand ancient temple rushed out of the crater. Dazzling light illuminated the entire ancient land, making it seem as if it was daytime. The stars in the sky all dimmed, and the five-colored divine light lingered. Several great demons and the experts of the Spirit Ruins Paradise immediately stopped fighting and rushed towards the grand ancient temple. They all wanted to be the first to open the temple's door, enter, and obtain the inheritance and divine treasury of the demon race sovereign. Chapter 57. Among these experts, in terms of speed, there was no doubt that the golden-haired girl from the demon clan was the fastest. She flapped her wings and two golden bolts of lightning streaked across the sky. She was the first to rush to the front of the ancient palace and spread her wings to push the tightly closed five-colored jade door. Swoosh! However, to everyone's surprise, a five-colored divine light rushed out and sent her flying on the spot. Even a great demon like her was sent tumbling 5 or 6 times. The others gasped and didn't dare to be careless. They all took out their weapons and rushed forward, wanting to open the tomb. The entire ancient palace was refined from five-colored divine jade. It was as if it had come from the primordial era. It gave off a sense of time and an aura of history. The sparkling ancient palace had many ancient characters engraved on its foundation. The dragon-shaped characters were bold and vigorous, the phoenix-shaped characters fluttered in the wind, the turtle-shaped characters were solemn, and the qilin-shaped characters were imposing like dragons and phoenixes, turtles and unicorns. They were majestic and powerful. These were the demon race's imperial characters from the primordial era. These characters had a mysterious power. Everyone tried to attack them several times, but they were all blown away by the flowing five-colored divine light. They couldn't get close and couldn't open the ancient palace's gate. Boom! Several great demons and the Spirit Ruin Wonderland's experts attacked together. The purple cauldron, golden sword, 8-trigram mirror, and serpent scale blade all struck the ancient palace's gate at the same time. Finally, it was shaken, and a small crack appeared amidst the rumbling sound. Suddenly, an ancient aura rushed over, and a powerful wave of life force surged like a vast ocean, immediately sending everyone outside flying. Boom! The dull yet powerful sound became even more frightening. Everyone's expression changed as they felt a pain in their hearts. However, no one stopped. After stabilizing themselves, they immediately rushed towards the majestic ancient palace. Swoosh! 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 Lights flickered as various weapons swallowed and spat out divine light. They constantly clashed, creating clanging sounds. The demon race's experts and the human cultivators squeezed in front of the five-colored ancient palace. The battle erupted again. No one wanted to be the first to enter. In front of the majestic ancient palace, a dazzling light shone and demonic energy soared to the sky. Both sides were fighting fiercely. This was a battle of life and death. No one held back since the tomb was too important to them. Blazing light flickered and the sky trembled. All kinds of weapons swallowed and spat out divine light. Murderous intent soared to the sky as divine power surged. The area in front of the ancient palace was almost boiling. The battle was extremely fierce. In just a few minutes, a supreme elder of the Spirit Ruin Wonderland of Wonderland was forced to retreat. His chest was pierced by a great demon and half of his heart was pulled out. Blood splattered on of the great demon's body, making him look of extreme savagery. With a cold expression, the sect master of the spirit ruin Utopia formed a seal with both hands and drew a strange trajectory in the sky, causing the purple copper cauldron to vibrate. Endless purple mist spread out and sucked the two great demons into the copper cauldron. The purple divine flame soared to the sky. Heart-wrenching screams came from within the furnace. The two great demons were melted in an instant. In the end, only two wisps of smoke drifted out. In the distance, Yifan was shocked. This kind of bitter battle was too terrifying. As a modern person, he found it hard to accept. He was seriously considering whether there was any meaning in being a cultivator and whether it was worth it. At this time, the fierce battle between the dozen ferocious birds and the elders of the spirit ruin wonderland also erupted. It was also incomparably bitter. A ferocious beast in human form with a wide mouth and fangs. It had fur that was half a foot long and looked very sinister. It tore an elder in half on the spot. Blood splattered everywhere and the dismembered body fell to the ground. It was a tragic sight. On the side, an elder of the spirit ruin wonderland took out the demon beheading blade and cut a ferocious bird in half. Cold light shone in all directions. The demon beheading blade was dripping with blood as it hung horizontally in the air. It was a bloody scene. Among the dozen or so super vicious birds and ferocious beasts, the lightning bird was the most terrifying. It possessed extreme speed, and as it rushed into the sky, it reached out with its golden claws, immediately shattering the divine drum produced by an elder. When it swooped down, it even more so brought along several hundred streaks of lightning. Thunder rumbled, lightning flickered, and it was as if several tens of meters long shining blades were falling down. Kacha! The elder of the spirit ruin wonderland rode on a divine rainbow and rushed up. However, he still couldn't avoid it. He couldn't outrun the hundreds of lightning bolts. His body was charred black by the electricity. He trembled a few times and fell into the crater of the volcano. He was swallowed by the surging magma. This battle was full of blood and slaughter. There were casualties on both sides. Everyone was risking their lives, wanting to be the first to rush into the tomb of the demon emperor. Is this the life of a cultivator? Yifan murmured to himself. He was not calm at all. This was completely different from his imagination of traveling on a rainbow and living a carefree life. Perhaps different cultivators have different paths. At this point, his eyes were clear and revealed a determined look. He continued, "Since I have chosen this path, I have to walk it step by step. My fate can't be controlled by others. I want to become stronger." Suddenly, a soft sound interrupted Yifan's thoughts. Pang Bo, who was on the ground, was covered in a misty green aura. There was also a green radiance that slowly lit up on the surface of his body. Rays of light flowed out from Pang Bo's body. It was the sealing power left behind by the Tao pattern that Elder Wu Qingfeng laid down. However, at this moment all of them rushed out and the seal lost its effect. At the same time, a faint green radiance bloomed in Pang Bo's sea of bitterness. Immediately after, his body shook, and his eyes opened with a swoosh. Two extremely demonic rays shot out. At the same time, strange runes appeared on Pang Bo's forehead and face. Some were meaningless stripes and some were like words. Those runes that looked like words were shaped like dragons and phoenixes, or like black tortoises, and there were even some that looked like wriggling snakes. Yifan was shocked. Although he could not recognize the meaning of those runes, he had heard from the imparting elder that they were very similar to the words of the demon race. Pang Bo's eyes were faint green. He sat up straight and then stood up silently. He looked coldly at Yifan as if he wanted to attack, but his raised hand was trembling and did not listen to his command. "Pang Bo!" Yifan called out loudly. He knew that Pang Bo's will was not completely asleep. He must be seizing control of the body. Hearing this call, the body shook, and the demonic runes on his forehead and face faded a lot. However, a deep roar was heard. Pang Bo's body violently shook, and then the green light shone brightly. His forehead and face were covered with demonic runes and finally he slowly calmed down. At this time he no longer stared at Yifan, but turned to look at the volcano and said in a hoarse voice, "I purposely let you seal me." Yifan was shocked. This unknown existence that occupied Pang Bo's body seemed to be very terrifying. At this time the battle in front of the ancient palace became more intense. The palace door was pushed open, and both sides were fighting fiercely in front of the main hall. The sect master of the spirit ruined paradise and two great demons had already taken a step inside. At this time, Pang Bo turned around and glanced at Yifan. Then he suddenly soared into the sky and turned into a green light, rushing towards the ancient palace above the crater of the volcano. The battle in front of the ancient palace was very intense. It was a stalemate and there were casualties on both sides. Pang Bo's sudden appearance immediately shocked the elders of the spirit ruin paradise. When the great demons saw the demonic runes on his forehead and face, they were also bewildered. However, no one had the time to care about him. The sect master of the spirit ruin paradise and the two great demons entered the ancient palace at the same time. Pang Bo left an afterimage in the sky and rushed in after the three experts. The sky was filled with brilliance. The remaining two supreme elders and the great demons also rushed into the palace one after another. Below, the lightning bird and the other super fierce birds and beasts, as well as the ordinary elders of the spirit ruin paradise, all soared into the sky and rushed towards the ancient palace. Boom! At this time, a muffled sound came from the palace again. It was far more violent and powerful than before. Pfft. The two elders of the grotto heaven in the spiritual ruins vomited blood on the spot and staggered out. On the other hand, a silver centipede as thick as an arm cracked all over. Then its body, which seemed to be made of silver, broke into pieces and fell from the ancient palace. There was also a fierce beast with the body of a wild ox, the head of a lion, and a body covered in green scales. It was more than a dozen meters tall and like a small mountain, it rushed into the sky. However, when it approached the ancient palace, it was shaken by the muffled sound and spurted out a large mouthful of blood. A shattered heart was coughed out on the spot. Thump, thump, thump. The muffled sound continued to resound. The super fierce birds and beasts that rushed in first and the elders of the spirit ruin paradise all staggered back. All of them were bleeding from their 7 orifices and were seriously injured. The weaker people and the few fierce birds and beasts directly died inside. Their chests were split open and blood splattered everywhere. They couldn't get out of the ancient palace. In the distance, Yi Fan was shocked. What kind of power did the demon emperor's tomb contain? It was actually so terrifying. Although he was very far away, he could still feel the increasingly powerful power. The muffled sound was also a little unbearable for him. The magnificent ancient palace was shaking. The people inside were fighting fiercely. A few great demons were scolding and the spirit ruin paradise's sect master and supreme elder were also roaring. Bang! A green light flashed and Pang Bo's figure appeared in front of the ancient palace. He seemed to have been killed by someone. His face was ashen. He slapped the few corpses on the ground and sent them flying. It was unknown how much power was contained in the slaps. All of them rushed towards the mountain where Yi Fan was and fell heavily on the ground. Yi Fan's heart moved because he noticed that Pang Bo, whose face was covered in green chi, glanced at him. Then he roared and rushed into the ancient palace again. Yi Fan flipped over the corpses and examined them carefully. Then he discovered something strange on one of the corpses. There was actually a faint golden light flowing out of its wounds. If one did not look closely, they would not be able to detect it. What's going on? Yi Fan extended his finger into the wound. He felt as if he had touched something and then used 2 fingers to clamp it out. Immediately, a dazzling brilliance rushed out. It was so bright that Yi Fan couldn't open his eyes. It was a golden paper with endless divine brilliance flowing on it. It was dazzling. This golden sheet of paper was even heavier than metal, and it was densely covered with countless ancient characters. They were so small that it was almost impossible to see them, and each ancient character was like a shining star, radiating resplendent light. Yi Fan's heart immediately beat faster. He felt his mouth was a little dry. He squinted his eyes because of the divine brilliance on the golden paper. Chapter 58. Yi Fan's heart raced out of excitement. He immediately thought of the Tao scripture. The main reason why the sect master of the spirit ruins grotto heaven fought with a few great demons was for the Tao scripture and a treasure from the eastern wilderness. The golden page was very mysterious. It looked like it was condensed from the essence of rainbow light. It was so dazzling that people couldn't open their eyes. Moreover, it was heavy in his hand, several times heavier than metal. It's just a page, but I'm afraid there are tens of thousands of words on it. Yi Fan squinted his eyes and carefully examined the golden page in his hand. However, he could only see a vague outline no matter how hard he tried. The words engraved on it were too small. Both sides of the page were densely packed with words. Every word was like a star, emitting a dazzling divine brilliance. Yi Fan couldn't calm down. If he wasn't wrong, this was definitely the Tao scripture, the thing he desired the most. He didn't expect to get it just like that. He felt like it was unreal. He squeezed the dazzling golden page in his hand and only calmed down after a long time. At this moment he thought of the green-faced Pang Bo. When he sent the corpses flying, he looked at him with a meaningful gaze. Did he attack me on purpose? Yi Fan instantly thought of this possibility. However, the unknown existence that occupied Pang Bo's body shouldn't be so kind. Why would it help him for no reason? Pang Bo. Yi Fan quickly thought of a possibility. Pang Bo had been fighting for control of the body. Perhaps he had temporarily taken control of the body at that moment. However, after thinking of this, Yi Fan shook his head. The possibility of this was very small. Pang Bo could at most interfere with the unknown existence, but he probably wouldn't be able to gain the upper hand. At that critical moment of life and death, if I was disturbed, my life would be in danger at any time. Yi Fan thought for a moment and believed that the unknown existence and Pang Bo might have reached a compromise and temporarily reached some kind of agreement to send the Golden Tao scripture out without anyone knowing. The more Yi Fan thought about it, the more he felt that it was very likely that Pang Bo had helped him by giving him the Tao scripture. He muttered to himself, "Nothing must happen to Pang Bo." Thinking of the monster runes that appeared on Pang Bo's face, Yi Fan's heart sank. This unknown existence was likely a monster, but it was clearly different from those great monsters. It had no interest in the Tao scripture of the human race, and likely wanted to fight for the relics left behind by the monster race great emperor. Yi Fan calmed himself down and carefully searched the other corpses, but found nothing else. There was only a single page on the golden paper, but it was glistening and heavy. It felt like he was holding a treasure trove, giving him a heavy pressure. In reality, this single page of the golden book was more precious than any treasure trove. Yi Fan wanted to get to the bottom of it. He concentrated and communicated with the golden sea of misery. He tried his best to use his eyesight, wanting to know what was recorded in this golden page. In the sea of bitterness, traces of golden light flowed up his body and condensed into Yi Fan's eyes, causing his pupils to flicker with golden light. Sea of Reincarnation Scroll. At the beginning of this golden page, there were 3 relatively large ancient characters that could be seen clearly. They were like 3 bright moons, shining and radiating brilliance. Looking down, the characters were much smaller and he could barely make out the characters. However, it made one's eyes hurt. Those ancient characters radiated divine light, shooting out like golden needles. The more one wanted to look, the more they couldn't see clearly. His eyes swelled up and were in incomparable pain. In just a moment, Yi Fan's eyes turned red and extremely sour. He couldn't help but tear up. He hurriedly shifted his gaze and the golden light in his eyes dissipated. It took him a moment to recover. This surprised him. Although he couldn't see those ancient characters clearly when he looked at it normally, it wouldn't hurt his eyes. But when he gathered strands of divine power in his eyes and stared at this page of the Tao scripture, it almost hurt his eyes. It was astonishing. This page of the Tao scripture is indeed extraordinary. Yi Fan didn't give up. He rested for a moment and then concentrated again. He communicated with the sea of misery, doing his best to use his eyesight. However, this time he didn't look at the beginning. Instead, he looked at the last few characters on the reverse side. Sea of Reincarnation Scroll. The last 4 ancient characters were just like the first 3. They were obviously much bigger and easier to see. They were like the bright moon rising from the sea, sprinkling down with multicolored light. Similarly, besides these 4 ancient characters, the other characters on the reverse side were impossible to distinguish. It was because every single tiny ancient character was like a miniature sun. They were dazzling and resplendent, and strands of divine radiance shot out like golden needles, piercing one's eyes and causing them to burn with discomfort. Yi Fan hurriedly shifted his gaze. His heart was beating violently. Now, he was almost certain that this golden page was the most important first volume of the Tao scripture. The so-called Sea of Reincarnation referred to the Wheel of Life and the Sea of Misery. It was the source of divine power and the foundation of cultivation. No wonder the master of the Spirit Ruin Wonderland said that this was the most important volume of the Tao scripture. It was the first volume of the Immortal scripture, the foundation of the towering skyscrapers. Old man Wu Qingfeng of the Spirit Ruin Wonderland once said that as long as a cultivator cultivated the Wheel of Life and the Sea of Misery to the extreme, they would be able to benefit for the rest of their lives and become a peak expert. From this, one could imagine the importance of the Sea of Reincarnation scroll. The Spirit Ruin Wonderland only had a fragment of this scroll. It was a fragment of the fragment that made up less than 10% of the total scripture. It could only allow the immortal seedlings who had just started to communicate with the Sea of Misery. There was no further cultivation method, which made Yi Fan feel quite regretful. At this moment he was overjoyed to have obtained the complete Sea of Reincarnation scroll. It was enough to benefit him for the rest of his life. This scroll was a complete cultivation system that could be cultivated endlessly. Yi Fan carefully put away the golden page. He knew that he must not leak any information or he would die without a burial. Even if the master of the Spirit Ruin Wonderland obtained it, he would have to immediately seek the protection of the Holy Land behind him. Otherwise there would be a calamity of annihilation. Such a scroll of the Tao scripture could be called a priceless treasure. At the same time, it was like an active volcano that could erupt at any time. Great benefits coexisted with the danger of destruction. Obtaining the golden page was already a great surprise. Yi Fan did not want to stay here any longer. At the moment he did not have the strength to fight for anything, so the best plan was to leave. He quickly rushed down the mountain and circulated the mysterious technique recorded in the Tao scripture. Golden threads immediately flowed out of the sea of misery and flowed towards his limbs and bones. His flesh and bones were all nourished, and his speed instantly increased by a lot. However, at this moment Yi Fan felt a strange change. The golden page in his bosom seemed to be trembling. At first he did not pay much attention to it until he suddenly felt a chill on his body. The golden page seemed to have touched his skin. What's going on? He did not put it on his body and hurriedly stopped to take a look. However, something that shocked Yi Fan happened. His bosom was empty and the page of the Tao scripture had disappeared. How is this possible? Yi Fan could not believe what was happening in front of him. Even if the sect leader of the Spirit Ruin Cave made a move, it was impossible for it to be so silent. How could it suddenly disappear? At the same time he felt the life essence in his body boiling. The mysterious technique recorded in the Tao scripture automatically circulated without his control, making his sea of misery shine with golden light. What? Yi Fan was very surprised. At this moment he felt that there was something strange in the sea of misery, as if there was something extra. He hurriedly looked inside himself. What he saw stunned him. In the golden sea of bitterness the size of a soybean, there was a page of a golden book. The golden page became smaller and inexplicably appeared in the golden sea of misery. This result made Yi Fan stunned for a long time. He felt that it was incredible. The mystical technique recorded in the Tao scripture stopped circulating and everything calmed down. However, a shrunken page of the golden book appeared in Yi Fan's golden sea of bitterness. No matter how hard he tried he could not move it at all. He could not come out anymore. Yi Fan was in a daze and did not understand why this happened. He pondered for a long time but still could not understand why this happened. However, he did not feel any discomfort in his body or the golden sea of misery, which made him feel slightly relieved. After calming down, Yi Fan decided to leave and took a step forward again. Boom! At this moment, a violent sound came from behind. In the distance, the ancient palace in the sky was shaking and blossoming with countless rays of light, sweeping away the surrounding super fierce birds and beasts, as well as the elders of the Spirit Ruin Cave. No, I can't leave. Yi Fan was really worried about Pang Bo, even though he knew that it was useless for him to stay here and he could not help at all. However, he couldn't get over the barrier in his heart. If he couldn't personally see Pang Bo escape unscathed, his heart wouldn't be at ease and he couldn't leave. Of course he would not act impulsively. This time he chose a mountain that was farther away and watched from afar. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At this moment, there was a sound of something breaking through the air in the distant sky. Dozens of divine rainbows flew over. Rumble. Then it was as if thousands of troops and horses were galloping. Behind the dozens of divine rainbows, the roars of wild beasts could be heard. Fog rolled and clouds covered the sky. Dozens of wild beasts came riding on clouds, each carrying a cultivator on their back. Although they were stepping on the sky, there was a thunderous sound as if there were tens of thousands of troops coming together. Those wild beasts were exotic species left behind from the Antiquity Age. All of them were covered in thick scales and looked extremely ferocious. The cultivator riding on the wild beast in the middle was holding a large flag in his arms. The flag was fluttering in the wind with great power. There were 4 big words written on it: Yaoguang Holy Land. Chapter 59. It was a very grand display of grandeur and grandeur. 36 divine rainbows were in front while 27 savage beasts carrying 27 formidable cultivators were in the rear. Although there were only several tens of cultivators, it was as though a magnificent army had arrived. Even the sky itself was trembling. It was as though an endless number of celestial soldiers and generals were charging towards them. People were shouting and beasts were roaring in the sky. The clouds were rolling and the murderous aura was surging like a vast ocean. Yi Fan was shocked. There were so many powerful cultivators, more than double the number of people in the Spirit Ruin Wonderland. Yaoguang Holy Land, is it the Holy Land that the Spirit Ruin Wonderland is attached to? Yi Fan murmured to himself. Whether it was in ancient China or on the other side of the starry sky, the two words Yaoguang were very particular. Yaoguang Holy Land is so mighty. At this moment, a cold voice came from another direction. The sky rumbled as 18 ancient chariots rolled over with a murderous aura. The pressure made the sky rumble and tremble. The ancient family passed down from the antiquity age, Ji clan. The people of the Yaoguang Holy Land narrowed their eyes when they saw the 18 ancient chariots. Everyone was on guard as the murderous aura rose. Both sides stopped and occupied a part of the sky, facing each other from afar. Fight for it with your own strength. These were the loud voices of the two groups. They confronted each other for a moment but did not fight. Both sides rushed to the grand ancient palace above the crater at the same time. Yifan's heart trembled. The legendary Holy Land and the clan of the ancients had arrived one after the other. It seemed that the appearance of the demon emperor's tomb was indeed shocking enough. After the two colossal figures received the news, they immediately came to the Yen lands and participated. Ji clan passed down from the antiquity age. Yifan pondered. The surname Ji was one of the most ancient surnames in China. It had a great origin and left countless legends in ancient China. He did not expect it to be the same on the other side of the starry sky. It was an existence that could be compared with the Holy Land. Rumble, the sky seemed to be hit by a flood. The Yaoguang Holy Land and the Ji clan, the two great forces, rushed over and arrived in front of the grand ancient palace in an instant. The ferocious beasts in the surroundings scattered. Although they could not transform into human forms, they had already gained intelligence. Sensing the danger, they all retreated decisively. On the other side, the elders of the Spirit Ruin Wonderland were all shocked. Although they were attached to the Yaoguang Holy Land, they did not report the sudden appearance of the demon god tomb. Now that the demon god tomb had appeared, they naturally felt a little uneasy. Moreover, the clan of the ancients closest to the land of Yen, the Ji clan, had also rushed here after receiving the news. The appearance of two super powerful clans made the people of the Spirit Ruin Wonderland feel bitter. They knew that it would be difficult for them to gain anything. At this moment, the majestic ancient hall was shaking non-stop. A few great demons, the leader of the spiritual ruins Grotto Heaven, and the Supreme Elder were fighting fiercely. The dull sound inside was getting louder and louder, making people's hearts ache from far away. The people of the Yaoguang Holy Land quickly surrounded the ancient palace. Dozens of wild beasts shook their heads and wagged their tails. They breathed out clouds and mist as they stomped in the sky. The 18 ancient chariots formed a battle formation and blocked the sky, confronting the Yaoguang Holy Land. At the same time, it was to prevent the demon god tomb from suddenly soaring into the sky. At this moment, 8 or 9 elders walked out from the crowd of the Yaoguang Holy Land and the Ji clan. They stepped in the void and disappeared into the ancient palace with a flash of light. Boom! The demon god tomb shook even more violently. The battle inside had reached its climax. Weapons kept spitting out divine light in the palace. The clan of the clan of the clan of the clan of the clan and the Holy Land broke the stalemate very quickly. It seemed that many restrictions inside were broken. Soon rays of light rushed out. The people guarding outside all took action. They rode the divine rainbows and fought for the rays of light that rushed out. After a closer look, it was actually a weapon with light flowing around it. It was obvious that it was not an ordinary item. Boom! Suddenly there was a violent tremor. The faces of the people surrounding the ancient palace turned pale and they quickly retreated backward. A vast and immeasurable force rushed out from the ancient palace like a tsunami. The 18 ancient chariots of the Ji clan were blown away, and the wild beasts and cultivators of the Yaoguang Holy Land were also thrown off their horses. They quickly retreated. The blazing light rushed out from the demon monarch's mausoleum, and it was so dazzling that people couldn't open their eyes. A vast and unpredictable power surged out like an avalanche, and a small crystal coffin that was less than a foot long rushed out. The strong power and the dazzling light came from it. Thump, thump, thump. It was trembling slightly like a heartbeat. It was rhythmic and filled with a majestic breath of life. The vast power swept out in all directions. Stop it! An anxious shout came from the demon god tomb. Then more than a dozen figures rushed out together. The one in the lead was Pang Bo. At this moment his entire body was surrounded by a green aura. The dragon and phoenix symbols on his face were even denser. Even his arms were gradually covered with black tortoise and Qilin characters. His eyes shot out a green light that was several meters long. At this moment, his demonic aura was soaring to the sky, even more so than the great beasts behind him. At this moment, there was nothing else in his eyes. He just stared at the foot-long crystal coffin without blinking, and he chased after it without giving up. The experts of the Yaoguang Holy Land and the Ji clan didn't look good after rushing out of the ancient palace. They loudly ordered the people around to stop the crystal coffin. At this time, the headmaster and supreme elder of the Spirit Ruin Wonderland also rushed out with ugly expressions. They didn't want to give up. Even though there were so many people here, they still wanted to fight for it. Otherwise, all their efforts would be in vain. As for the great beasts, they were the angriest. Their faces were full of unwillingness, but facing so many human experts, they were powerless. They rushed out of the encirclement and prepared to act according to the situation. The 18 ancient chariots of the Ji clan lined up in a battle formation and blocked the sky, blocking the crystal coffin. The cultivators of the Yaoguang Holy Land also took action. Some rode wild beasts, some rode divine rainbows, and all rushed forward. The crystal coffin, which was less than a foot long, was immediately trapped. At this moment, all the experts who rushed out of the Demon King's tomb arrived. Almost at the same time, they reached out their hands and tried to grab it. Bang! More than a dozen pairs of hands reached out and grabbed the crystal coffin. Of course, those hands were formed from light and not the real hands of the crowd. While they were fighting for the crystal coffin, they were also fighting each other. The 18 ancient chariots of the Ji clan surrounded them while the people of the Yaoguang Holy Land rushed forward. At this moment, the faces of the Spirit Ruin Wonderland sect leader and the two surviving supreme elders of the Spirit Ruin Wonderland turned ugly. They were very strong, but they were alone in front of so many people. Of course, Pang Bo was alone, but he didn't give up. His demonic aura soared to the sky. The green light that shot out from his eyes was more than a dozen meters long, even more powerful than before. Crack, crack. At this moment, the crystal coffin couldn't withstand the impact of so many experts. It slowly cracked and then shattered with a bang. Boom. At this moment, a monstrous demonic aura burst out in an instant and sent everyone flying. No one could withstand such a violent force. As for the chariots of the Ji clan, the 4 chariots at the very front were directly crushed. The 12 cultivators on them were like piles of yellow sand, turning into dust in an instant. The Yaoguang Holy Land also suffered a great loss. More than a dozen people were crushed by the monstrous demonic aura. Together with their wild beasts, they turned into blood mist and died a violent death. The headmaster of the Spirit Ruin Wonderland and the 2 supreme elders turned pale. They flew backward for hundreds of meters before stabilizing themselves. Even powerful people like them were almost injured. In the distance, Yi Fan's heart tightened. He was afraid that something might happen to Pang Bo. Even though his body was controlled by an unknown existence, it was still Pang Bo's body. The demonic aura soared to the sky, but Pang Bo was safe and sound. He retreated further than anyone else as if he had already expected this result. At this moment, the breath of life that burst out from the shattered crystal coffin was like an ocean. Everyone's life force combined was not as powerful as it. The source of the endless demonic aura was actually a bright red heart. It was only the size of a fist and was crystal clear like a red agate. Vigorous blood-colored divine splendor lingered around it. The endless demonic aura and powerful breath of life were emitted from it. Thump, 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 the sound of a heartbeat could be heard. It was actually trembling and didn't lose its vitality. This was a heart with strong vitality. At this moment, no one could get close to it. Every time this crystal clear and bright red heart beat, the surrounding people felt their blood surging and their blood vessels about to burst. Everyone's heart was in excruciating pain. Blood seeped out from the corner of their mouths. They couldn't support themselves and flew backward quickly. Just the normal beating of such a terrifying heart was already unbearable. The heart of the great emperor. It's the sacred heart of the great emperor of our demon race. In the sky, a few demons were extremely shocked and couldn't help but exclaim. The crystal clear heart of the demon god was beating vigorously. Then, it suddenly soared into the sky and turned into a ray of blood-colored divine light, rushing into the distant sky. Stop it, we must not let it leave. An old man from the Yaoguang sacred land shouted anxiously. Stop it at all costs. The powerful figures from the Ji clan also shouted, that's the heart of the great emperor of the demon race. It's the source of his power. If other demons get it, it's very likely that another great emperor of the demon race will be created. When they gave the order, the few demons had already rushed out. However, there was a figure that was faster than everyone else. It was Pang Bo. He merged with the heaven and earth and turned into a ray of green light. He disappeared in the blink of an eye and followed the heart of the great emperor of the demon race. The Ji clan sent 8 ancient chariots to chase after it, and the Yaoguang sacred land also sent half of their people to chase after it. They each left half of their people to surround the demon god tomb. If we knew that it was the demon god tomb, we would have reported it no matter what. We don't have enough people to rush here. An old man from the Yaoguang sacred land sighed continuously. I thought it was just an ordinary cave abode. I didn't expect it to be the tomb of the great emperor of the demon race. This is really unexpected. This is a big event that can shake the eastern wilderness. The powerful figures from the Ji clan also regretted it. They did not report it to their superiors and directly rushed over with their people. In the distance, Yi Fan was very shocked. Among these people, there were at least 10 of them who were not weaker than the leader of the Spirit Ruins Grotto Heaven. However, from their words, it was not difficult to tell that they were not the real powerful figures from the Yaoguang sacred land and the Ji clan. This was really shocking. The Great Sage and the remote antiquity families were really unimaginable giants. Leader Li, have you obtained the legendary Dao scripture? An old man from the Yaoguang sacred land asked the leader of the Spirit Ruins Grotto Heaven. Since he knew that it was the tomb of the great emperor of the demon race, he immediately knew what kind of important sacred item was buried here. Apart from the demon treasures used by the great emperor of the demon race, there must be 3 other divine treasures. The Dao scripture, the supreme treasure of the eastern wilderness humans, and the body of the great emperor of the demon race. Among them, the heart, the source of the great emperor of the demon race's demonic power, had already broken through the sky. It was hard to say whether they could catch it or not. Apart from the supreme treasure of the great emperor of the demon race, the Yaoguang sacred land and the Ji clan were determined to get the other 2 sacred items of the eastern wilderness humans. The leader of the Spirit Ruins Grotto Heaven felt bitter in his heart. He did not report it to the Yaoguang sacred land in advance, but he still got nothing. If he had known this, he would have done them a great favor. He hurriedly explained, the first divine treasure, the Dao scripture, disappeared, leaving only an empty box. No one saw the true scripture. Unexpectedly, the third divine treasure was opened first, and the heart of the great emperor of the demon race also broke through the sky. Now, only the second divine treasure is left, and we have just broken through half of the restrictions. I guess the supreme treasure of the eastern wilderness humans is still inside. In addition, there must be some of the supreme treasures of the demon race that the great emperor of the demon race used when he was alive. The Dao scripture actually disappeared. How could this be? The experts of the Yaoguang sacred land and the Ji clan of the remote antiquity all stared at the leader of the Spirit Ruins Grotto Heaven, as if they did not believe it at all. The leader of the Spirit Ruins Grotto Heaven felt bitter in his heart. There were several ancient scriptures in the eastern wilderness that were comparable to the Dao scripture. It was said that they were in the hands of the Holy Lands and the remote antiquity families. They already had immortal scriptures that were not inferior to the Dao scripture, but they still wanted to snatch this ancient scripture. The leader of the Spirit Ruins Grotto Heaven could only sigh in his heart. He shook his head helplessly and said, "We really did not see it." At this moment, melodious celestial music came from the distant sky. A dozen women flew over and happened to fly over the top of Yi Fan's head, which shocked him. These dozen or so women all wore clothes whiter than snow. Even though they couldn't be considered to be exceptionally beautiful, every single one of them was elegant and otherworldly, not tainted by the aura of the mortal world. They were incomparably graceful as they flew over, as if they were fairies walking on waves, or like dancing spirits, otherworldly and refined. Some of them played the bamboo flute, which was very melodious and pleasant to listen to. There were also some who smiled, which made people feel as if they were bathing in the spring breeze. These picturesque women all looked like celestials with an otherworldly aura. Yi Fan was shocked. He felt that these were the cultivators he had imagined. They looked ethereal and elegant, as if they were riding on rainbows, transcending the mortal world and free in the world. I didn't expect that even the Jade Lake sacred land, which has not appeared in the world for a long time, would be alarmed. I guess it won't be long before the other sects and clans in the eastern wilderness flock here. The Jade Lake sacred land has always stood aloof from worldly affairs. Do you want to fight for the treasure of the great emperor of the demon race this time? The people from the Yaoguang sacred land and the Ji clan of the ancients spoke at the same time. They were both greeting the beautiful women and also a kind of test. We were just passing by and found that the demonic energy here is as vast as the ocean, so we came to check it out. I didn't expect to meet you all here. A woman in white smiled faintly, then her expression turned serious. She said, "I didn't think that the tomb of the great emperor of the demon race has appeared. In the next few days the entire eastern wilderness will be shaken. Countless sects and clans will send their people here. In the distance, Yifan was very surprised. The names Yaoguangji and Jade Lake were all extraordinary. Especially the Jade Lake, which had left a strong mark in the ancient legends of China. He didn't expect that it would have such a great origin on the other side of the starry sky. Chapter 60. The land of Yen was only a small part of the eastern barren territory. If the news were to spread, this ruin would be flooded by countless cultivators. At this moment, the most disappointed person was the Spirit Ruin Wonderland's leader. Sacred grounds and clan of the ancients had all appeared. He knew that it would be difficult to gain anything this time. There was no way he could compete with these giants. An ancient chariot from clan of the ancients, the Ji clan, rumbled across the sky, causing the sky to tremble. It sped away. Seeing this, the people of the Yaoguang sacred land's expressions changed. An old man hurriedly ordered 2 cultivators beside him. Hurry back to the sacred ground and report this. Send reinforcements. It was impossible to cover up the news of the appearance of the tomb of the demon god. It would definitely shake the entire eastern barren land. Soon, more and more sects would rush over, including the families and sacred grounds of the clan of the ancients that were on par with them. Ji clan and Yaoguang sacred ground had no choice but to ask for help. Let's work together to break the tomb and take out the treasures. What do you think? An old man from the Yaoguang sacred land looked at the cultivators of the Ji clan and the women from the Jade Lake sacred land. Finally, he glanced at the Spirit Ruin Wonderland's leader. All right, that's how it should be. The cultivators on the chariot of the Ji clan nodded. The dozen or so women of the Jade Lake Holy Lands were ethereal and elegant, each of them beautiful and otherworldly. They didn't want to participate in this battle and all of them drew back. The woman in the lead opened her red lips and said, "We are just passing by. We don't want to fight for the monster race Great Emperor's treasures. If that's the case, we won't force you. Let's join forces and break open the monster race Great Emperor's tomb." The Yaoguang sacred land and the Ji clan were eager for the Jade Lake's people to leave. Although there were many treasures in the tomb, no one would complain about having too many. The fewer people participating, the better. Leaderly, bring some people here too. An old man from the Yaoguang sacred land glanced into the distance. The Spirit Ruin Wonderland's leader felt bitter and said, "We will do our best." The old man from the Yaoguang sacred land nodded. "Your Spirit Ruin Wonderland has already put in a lot of effort. We will definitely satisfy you when we open the tomb." Then, more than 20 powerhouses entered the tomb again, wanting to completely open this ancient tomb. Boom. The ancient palace made of 5-colored divine jade constantly shook and shone with dazzling light, causing the entire world to tremble. Something's wrong? The women from the Jade Lake sacred land all had strange expressions. The ancient palace's characters are getting brighter and brighter. Those ancient characters seem to have a life of their own. They are all trembling as if they want to break through the walls. The demonic characters on the walls of the ancient palace were all blossoming with splendor. The dragon-shaped characters were twisting like little dragons, the phoenix-shaped characters were spreading their wings and flying out, and the tortoise-shaped characters were rolling non-stop. The demonic Thearka's tomb emitted a mysterious aura. Powerful demonic energy was slowly condensing, and the tomb was covered in a layer of misty fog. Emperor of Yao Tamoff said of Yao of Spirits. The dozen or so women from the Jade Lake sacred ground all revealed astonished expressions. They felt the increasingly powerful demonic energy. Gradually it surged up like an ocean. Not everyone from the Yaoguang sacred land and the Ji clan had entered the tomb of the Demon King. The people guarding outside had also sensed the change. Their expressions changed abruptly and they shouted towards the inside, "Oh no, there's a change in the tomb. Retreat quickly." The people inside already knew something was wrong. The people at the front suddenly turned into blood mist. Everything happened so fast that they didn't know what was going on. Swish, swish. Everyone quickly retreated. Their bodies turned into divine rainbows as they rushed towards the exit. Boom. The tomb suddenly lit up with endless light. The people at the back were burned on the spot. They struggled fiercely but it was useless. They turned into ashes in an instant. Go. The headmaster and 2 supreme elders of the Spirit Ruin Wonderland rushed out. 4 or 5 people from the Yaoguang sacred land and Ji family also rushed out. The others were all sealed inside. At this moment, the great doors of the ancient palace slowly closed. Through the gap that was not completely closed in time, they could see the scene inside. The light was resplendent, and the people trapped inside couldn't move at all. Their bodies were transparent and their blood was burning. Their internal organs were quickly charred, and then their flesh and bones turned into ashes in an instant. Their horrifying expressions before they died made everyone feel terrified. Especially those who had just come out. They were terrified. If they were one step late, they would have the same ending. How could this be? What happened? Why is this tomb suddenly so scary? The old man from the Yaoguang sacred land looked pale. They hadn't obtained the treasure yet, but they had already lost so many people. It was not a good sign. This is the backup plan of the Emperor of Yao clan. I'm afraid that without the help of the great demon, this ancient palace would be a fatal devil's nest for human cultivators. The expert of Ji family made such a judgment. Everyone thought about it and felt that it was reasonable. Nothing strange happened when the great demon was here. It was only until they left that the ancient palace became so mysterious and scary. It's very likely. The Emperor of Yao clan definitely doesn't want human cultivators to obtain his inheritance. Then what should we do? Do we need to catch some great demon? I'm afraid it's too late. Many sects are already on their way here. The people from the Yaoguang sacred land and the Ji family of the ancients discussed for a while and decided to attack together from outside. They had to open the ancient palace first. Otherwise it would be hard to say who would get the treasure. We have to open it first. The alliance of the Yaoguang sacred land and the Ji family was enough to suppress ordinary sections. But if it was a powerful sect or another holy land or a family of the ancients, then it would be troublesome. Those people wouldn't have any scruples when they fought for the treasure. The eastern wasteland was too big. Not to mention powerful cultivators, even countries were hard to count. There wasn't a single holy land that could frighten the entire eastern wasteland. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. All kinds of weapons shone brightly and attacked the tomb of the Emperor of Yao clan. Violent energy waves exploded. However, what was surprising was that the tomb of the Emperor of Yao clan was not damaged at all. The symbols on it were even brighter. Those symbols are wriggling. At this moment all the cultivators were startled. Small dragons crawled up from the base of the tomb, phoenixes spread their wings and black turtles slowly crawled. The Emperor's symbols of the Yao clan were all moving. They extended from the base of the ancient palace until they covered the entire ancient palace. It was as if they were carved with incantations, looking mysterious and unfathomable. Waves of demonic energy circulated. The Yaoguang sacred land and the Ji family attacked several times, but they all failed. They even lost 2 ancient chariots and 7 or 8 beasts. The symbols of the Emperor of Yao clan had a strange power. From time to time, divine lights would shoot out and pierce through people. It's over. Those are the Emperor's symbols of the Yao clan. They must have been left behind by the last Emperor of Yao clan. The old man from the Yaoguang sacred land was pale. He clenched his fists so hard that his knuckles turned white. He said, "We can't open it by ourselves. We can only wait for the powerful cultivators of the Holy Lands to come. I just don't know how many sects will come." The powerful cultivators of the Ji family stood on the ancient chariots with ugly expressions. The tomb was so evil that they could only wait for the powerful cultivators to come. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. More than 10 divine rainbows appeared in the sky. After the news was leaked, the first batch of cultivators arrived. However, when they saw that they were from the other 5 blessed paradises of the Yen kingdom, everyone let out a sigh of relief. They were secretly glad that they were not from the super sections. Rumble, rumble. Far in the sky, the clouds rolled and the light shone everywhere. A giant divine boat made of divine jade broke through the sky and approached them quickly. The people from the Yaoguang sacred land and the Ji family immediately changed their expressions. What they were afraid of had come. Finally, the super sects arrived. However, what shocked them was yet to come. At this moment, a tsunami-like horrifying fluctuation came from afar. In another direction, a few tens of rays of divine light were opening up a path ahead. 9 primordial savage beasts that seemed like Qilins were pulling a jade carriage that was coiled with divine radiance, and they soared through the clouds and emanated waves of thunderclaps as they charged over swiftly. The powerful cultivators of the Yaoguang sacred land and the Ji family all changed their expressions. This was definitely a super powerful figure. Otherwise, it would be impossible for them to have such a grand entrance. Such a figure actually came in person. Chapter 61. Qilin was a legendary existence that was on par with dragons. It had always been passed down by people and almost no one had seen it since the ancient times. Just like the dragons in the legends, only those with impure blood lived in the world. However, they were often mistaken for dragons such as dragons, Jiao. It was the same for Qilin. They didn't have a real body in the world. They only had the bloodline passed down from the primordial era. They looked similar and weren't real Qilin, so they were called Qilin beasts. These ancient beasts with impure blood were still extremely powerful even though their divine blood had already thinned out. Their strength was comparable to a big demon. The person was pulling the carriage with 9 Qilin beasts. It was so extravagant that people couldn't help but be shocked. Swish, swish. Dozens of divine rainbows opened the way and rushed over. The 9 ancient beasts that looked like Qilin rushed over and stopped in front of the demon god's tomb. The jade carriage was glittering with thousands of auspicious lights and divine clouds. It was very extraordinary. An elder from the Yaoguang Holy Land said in a low voice, "The Ji family, a family of the remote antiquity, used 9 dragons to pull his chariot. In comparison, the person who used 9 Qilin beasts to pull his chariot must have an extraordinary identity." The powerful cultivator on the Ji family's ancient chariot smiled bitterly and said, "The person pulling the carriage with 9 dragons is an uncle of our family leader. The person in front of us is so extravagant. Even if he isn't the family leader of some clan of the ancients, he is almost there." The cultivators from the Yaoguang sacred ground and the Ji family were all shocked. They didn't dare to go forward and greet him. They were all stunned by this mysterious person and didn't know who he was. The dozen girls from the Jade Lake sacred ground were also discussing softly, but they couldn't guess which important person had come. After the 9 Qilin beasts stopped, there was no movement in the jade carriage. The important person didn't come out and seemed to be waiting for something quietly. On the other side, the giant divine boat made of divine jade was floating in the air. It didn't come closer as if it was afraid of the jade carriage. Obviously this was just the prelude. More sects were coming. It was obvious that thousands of people would gather before dawn. When the news spread out, this place would definitely be in an uproar. The tomb of the demon god would attract the attention of all the cultivators in the eastern wilderness. The reappearance of the tomb of a great demon emperor is too significant. If those holy lands far away in the horizon receive the news, they will definitely set up Tao patterns in their sects, condense the power of heaven, and open the ancient path to quickly pass through space and arrive in the land of Yen. The demonic beast emperor's tomb shone brightly as more and more people gathered around. Occasionally there would be people discussing in low voices. Even though they knew that they wouldn't be able to obtain the treasures, they still rushed here. They wanted to personally witness a major event that would shake the entire eastern wilderness. Yifan left without looking back. There was nothing for him to miss here. A long time had passed and Pang Bo had not returned. He could not wait any longer. "Please don't let anything happen to Pang Bo." Yifan crossed over the mountain ridges, his speed extremely fast. Not long after he left this ancient land. He ran the entire way, but even when the sky brightened, he still didn't discover anything. Divine rainbows streaked across the sky above this primitive ancient land from time to time. Those cultivators were all flying in the same direction. Obviously they were all heading towards the demon god tomb. Where exactly did I go? Did I go in the wrong direction? Yifan chased along the way but didn't discover anything. However, he didn't give up and continued forward. Until noon he sensed a strange wave. The heart of the demon god is beating. I found the right direction. Yifan chased after it quickly, but an hour later, he realized that he was back at the same place as if he had never left. In front, 5 mountains were juxtaposed, straight up and down. They were very precipitous and looked like 5 human fingers standing there. What's going on? Yifan didn't understand but didn't think much about it. He thought that he lost his direction just now. He stopped here, carefully identified the direction and chased after it again. He believed that he wouldn't circle back this time. However, an hour later, he was dumbfounded as he realized that he was back at the same place again. Why is it like this? Returning to the starting point again, Yifan knew that things were unusual. This place was only a few hundred miles away from the demon god tomb, and it was still in the ancient land. There seemed to be something strange. Initially, he didn't pay attention to the surrounding scenery. Now that he looked carefully, Yifan was very surprised. The 5 juxtaposed mountains really looked like the giant palm of a god standing in front of him. The 5 mountains looked like 5 fingers. Could it be that the mountains and earth veins here were engraved with Tao patterns and formed some kind of mysterious force that messed up people's senses? Yifan muttered to himself and made such a guess. He closed his eyes and advanced according to his intuition. He used his heart to feel the strong and powerful beating of the heart of the demon god. After an unknown period of time, he suddenly felt a gush of spirit energy rushing towards him. Yifan opened his eyes and realized that he had entered a world of flowers and birds. It was like the legendary sacred Pure Land. The scenery was picturesque and extremely beautiful. At this moment he could clearly feel the beating of the heart of the demon god, which made his heart ache. It was in the depths of this Pure Land. To be exact, it was behind those beautiful mountain peaks. The mist was misty, and some pavilions and palaces were faintly discernible in the depths of the Immortal Mountains. Yi Fan walked forward quickly. Suddenly, he noticed a beautiful figure standing on the cliff in front of him. The surrounding mist surged. That lady was dressed in white and was as pure as snow. Her clothes danced with the wind as though she was a fairy that was about to ride the wind and fly away. This was an extremely beautiful lady. Like an orchid in an empty valley, she was very otherworldly and had a kind of tranquil beauty. She was in perfect harmony with the beautiful natural scenery around her as though she was a part of this world. Yi Fan never believed that there was perfection in the world, but the lady on the cliff in front of him gave him a flawless feeling. Not only was she devastatingly beautiful, but her temperament was also so otherworldly. She made people feel ashamed of their inferiority as though all the beautiful things in this world would be overshadowed by her. This charming lady looked to be only 18 or 19 years old. Her black hair danced lightly, her long eyelashes quivered, and her eyes seemed to be misty. Her red lips and jade-like teeth shone with a crystal luster. Her neck was slender, her skin was smooth, her facial features were exquisite, and her curvy body made people feel that she was flawless and so perfect. Yi Fan was a determined and confident person, so he was not greatly affected. After a brief moment of absent-mindedness, he quickly calmed down and strode forward. At this moment, the lady on the cliff looked at him and gently smiled. Immediately, it was like a blossoming immortal flower, extremely brilliant, even making the sun in the sky lose its color. While Yi Fan was shocked by this beauty, a strange feeling arose in his heart. This lady was too unreal, like a dream or an illusion, flawless and almost devilishly perfect. Stop here or else you will lose your life. A voice that was like the sounds of nature traveled over. It was very pleasant, but it made Yi Fan feel a chill. He felt that this perfect lady was not joking. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The sound of breaking air rang out. The great demons that had disappeared not long ago rushed out from the depths of the Immortal Mountain and appeared next to the lady. The golden-haired girl with wings, the old flood dragon, the sturdy man whose arms were covered in scales, and the giant man with horns on his head all had pale faces, as if their vitality had been injured. They humbly approached the perfect girl and stood there respectfully. Then they looked at Yi Fan with killing intent in their eyes. Let him leave. At this moment, Pang Bo's voice came from the Immortal Mountain behind the cliff. He seemed to be in great pain as he spat out these 4 words through clenched teeth. Kill him and end all troubles. At this moment, the old flood dragon pressed forward. Boom. All of a sudden, a towering wave of demonic chi gushed forth like a vast ocean. In an instant, a silhouette appeared in the skies. Pang Bo's black hair fluttered wildly in the wind. His entire being was like the abyss, as deep as the ocean, exuding an endless sense of pressure. His aura was as heavy as 100,000 mountains, causing people to feel suffocated. At this moment, not only were Pang Bo's cheeks and forehead covered with demonic symbols, but even his bare chest and arms were densely covered with dragon and phoenix symbols. His entire body was covered with ancient characters, and a green aura curled around him. His eyes shot out a green light that was dozens of meters long. I said let him leave. His expression was extremely cold as he stared at the old flood dragon. The old flood dragon and the other great demons all looked at the almost perfect girl on the cliff at the same time, as if waiting for her order. The perfect girl smiled faintly and said, "Don't hurt him. Send him away from here." Pang Bo. Yi Fan shouted. Looking at the figure in the sky with a monstrous demonic aura and a mountainous aura, he shouted the name over and over again. However, at this moment, Pang Bo was both familiar and strange. His expression was cold as he looked at him. Without saying anything, he disappeared into the sky with a swoosh. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared without a trace. The ocean-like demonic aura receded like the tide. Immediately after, Yi Fan felt his body lighten. The extremely beautiful golden-haired girl with a pair of golden wings flew over nimbly and imprisoned him with a beam of light. She took him up into the sky in an instant. Yi Fan kept shouting, "Pang Bo!" Very quickly the air rushed into his mouth and blocked his shout. The golden-haired girl took him flying at an extremely fast speed. Only unwilling whimpers could be heard in the sky. They were far away in an instant. Swoosh. Not long after, the golden-haired girl landed on the ground with Yi Fan and put him down. She looked at him deeply and said, "You're on your own. Leave as soon as possible." After saying that, she turned into a beam of golden light and soared into the sky. Yi Fan looked up and shouted, "Let Pang Bo come back." However, no one responded to him. The beam of golden light disappeared in the blink of an eye. This place was only several miles away from the demonic emperor tomb. One could clearly see the resplendent brilliance in that direction. An ancient palace floated up and down in the sky. Many cultivators were gathered there. Yifan was sent back to the primordial ruins. Chapter 62. The sound of divine rainbows piercing through the air could be heard incessantly as cultivators rushed over from the horizon towards the tomb of the demon god. Yifan did not look very excited as he looked at all this. He strode towards the distance and gradually left the ruins. He followed the original route and arrived at the area where the Five-Finger Mountains were. What's going on? Yifan was very surprised. It was still the same area, but the lush and lively scene was gone. Right in front of them were 5 barren rocky mountains. Not even a blade of grass grew on them. There was nothing at all. Moreover, they were not as tall as before and became very short, like 5 huge stones standing side by side. After passing through the 5 stone mountains and walking forward, he did not lose his direction and did not see the pure land beyond the worldly world. There was a ground of rocks and yellow sand in front of him. It was desolate and quiet, and it became very unfamiliar and desolate. I didn't go in the wrong direction. Yifan was sure that it was this area, but the scene in front of him had completely changed. The pure land had completely disappeared. Yifan thought that he had stepped into an illusion. He closed his eyes and used his heart to feel the heartbeat of the heart of the demon god, but he did not sense anything. This place was exceptionally quiet, and it was truly a barren land. He carefully searched this area, and helplessly discovered a fact. All of this was real. There was no pure land here, only a land of sand and stone with a circumference of several dozen miles. There was no life here and it was completely lifeless. How could this be? Yifan frowned and came to the front of the 5 stone mountains again. Suddenly, he found a corner of a sleeve at the foot of the stone mountain in the middle. It's Pang Bo's? Yifan searched this area continuously but was ultimately disappointed. There was nothing in this barren land. Pang Bo and the few great demons had completely disappeared. After searching around this area for God knows how many times, Yifan laid on the sand in exhaustion. He pondered and speculated carefully and finally sighed. With his current strength he could not find Pang Bo at all. Even if he really found some clues he could not save him. In the end Yifan could only choose to leave. He didn't know if he would be able to see Pang Bo again after today. After arriving at the other side of the starry sky, the two of them had been through life and death together, supporting each other. But now that they were separated like this, Yifan felt very disappointed. He walked away step by step. After walking for a few hundred miles, Yifan passed by the ancient ruins and was only a few miles away from the tomb of the demon the Arch. At this moment there were already many cultivators gathered there. The tomb of the demon the Arch was floating up and down in the sky, radiating brilliance. Right at this moment, a rumbling sound rang out and the sky trembled. An ancient war chariot filled with a murderous aura forged from gold, and inscribed with dense Dao markings, was pulled by 9 formidable green flood dragons. It emitted waves of sounds of wind and thunder as it crushed through the sky and surged over, and a powerful battle intent surged over like a tsunami. In the distance many cultivators gasped. Another great character had arrived. Many people's expressions changed. Only the people from the Ji clan of the Desolate Era revealed a joyful expression. The 9 green flood dragons pulled the ancient golden war chariot, riding on the clouds and quickly arrived. It stopped in front of the people from the Ji clan and then became silent. Before everyone could recover from their shock, waves of heavenly music came from afar. Flower petals fell from the sky, sparkling and fragrant. One after another, beautiful figures flew through the sky like fairies. Their sleeves fluttered in the wind, and there was an indescribable sense of otherworldly beauty. They were dressed in brocade, holding onto a carriage woven from divine flowers. They came gracefully, and the sky was filled with a rain of flowers. The sparkling and translucent petals made the entire ruins look magnificent. In front of the tomb all the cultivators were shocked. Another extraordinary character had arrived. As expected, this ancient palace had alarmed many powerful cultivators, and they all personally rushed over. Yifan had already calmed down. Although he didn't find Pang Bo, he firmly believed that Pang Bo wouldn't die. Sooner or later they would meet again. Become stronger, I have to continuously become stronger. I can't let others dictate our fate. Yifan's disappointment was swept away. His eyes were clear, and he revealed a resolute and confident expression. Since he had already stepped onto the path of cultivation, his current priority was to make himself stronger. Only by doing so could he save Pang Bo in the future. He didn't leave. Instead, he chose to retreat several miles away. He stood on a tall mountain 8 to 9 miles away from the tomb and gazed into the distance. With his current cultivation, he didn't have the strength to fight for anything at all. Even the weakest person there could easily turn him into ashes. He chose to look from afar only to increase his knowledge. At this moment, it was unknown how many cultivators had arrived. Many of them had already made their move, but no one could open the tomb. Many cultivators had died or were injured. The majestic ancient palace refined from 5-colored divine jade was covered with densely packed demonic runes. 5-colored divine radiance bloomed, and the dragon-shaped runes, phoenix-shaped runes, and black tortoise-shaped runes seemed to be alive. Demonic aura was like billowing smoke that shot straight into the sky. The surging demonic power was undulating like a vast ocean. All the cultivators couldn't get close. Those who dared to cross the boundary were all turned into dust in the first instant. The Slayer immortal force laid down by the first-generation demonic emperor has long fallen to the bottom under the corrosion of time. Moreover, we have already grasped the rhythm of its pulse. It's about time. We can make our move. In front of the demonic emperor's tomb, a cold voice came from the jade carriage that was pulled over by the 9 Qilin beasts. It wasn't very loud and was even a little low. However, it clearly spread to every corner, causing many cultivators to feel a shiver. This super big shot was finally going to make his move. That's right. We can indeed open the demonic emperor's tomb now. A gentle voice came over. Everyone didn't find any traces of this woman, but no one doubted that she was an existence of the same level as them since she dared to speak with the big shot in the jade carriage. Our clans have an innate geographical advantage. Now that we open the tomb, we will obtain a lot. At this time, a dignified voice came from the other side of the sky. Every single word was like thunder, causing everyone's ears to ring. Under the sky where the rain of flowers swirled about, a woman's voice came from the carriage that was weaved by divine flowers. The voice was clear and pleasant to listen to. If that's the case, then let's make our move. We will forcefully open the demonic emperor's tomb to avoid harming the innocent. Everyone back off. An aged voice came from the Ji clan's ancient golden chariot that was filled with murderous intent. It was like a tsunami that shook the sky. It had an unparalleled pressure. The 5 big shots spoke one after another. Their voices were almost linked together. It was terrifying, like the rumbling of thunder. At this moment, everyone's mind trembled violently. Their bodies swayed and they couldn't help but back off into the distance. The 5 mysterious big shots didn't want to wait any longer because the experts from the other super forces were about to arrive. The 5 of them were going to work together to forcefully break the demonic emperor's tomb and seize the treasures in advance. Even though he was 8 to 9 miles away, Yi Fan still felt a terrifying fluctuation. He was in awe. Without any hesitation, he quickly distanced himself from this region and retreated a few more miles. Boom. Not long after, an earth-shattering explosion came from the direction of the demonic emperor's tomb. It made everyone's soul tremble. The resplendent divine light broke through the clouds and connected heaven and earth. Like a volcano erupting, endless demonic energy surged out violently. The dazzling light was like a tsunami that rushed out in all directions. Many cultivators were like duckweed as they were sent flying by the energy wave. They had already retreated far enough, but they were still affected by the shockwave. In the distance, Yi Fan was aghast. Even he was affected by the impact. Many plants were broken and many rocks rolled away. He hid behind a stone mountain and felt a little frightened. This demonic emperor's tomb was too terrifying. Countless years had passed, and the slay immortal power laid down by the demonic emperor was already extremely weak. However, when it was attacked by external forces, it still burst out such a terrifying demonic aura. One could imagine how powerful the demonic emperor who unified the Eastern Desolate demonic race was. The demonic emperor is indeed worthy of being the expert who looked down on the Eastern Desolate before the primordial era. The seal he laid down when he was still alive has such terrifying power. His peerless demonic elegance in the past is evident. In front of the magnificent ancient palace, there were only 5 people left. Their figures couldn't be seen clearly, and there were only 5 balls of dazzling light floating there. The few of them were all in awe. The demonic emperor of a generation was shockingly talented. He was indeed a peerless expert. Right now, the remaining demonic power in this tomb is probably less than 10% of his peak, but it still has such terrifying power. Just thinking about it is shocking. Although the 5 important figures said so, they didn't stop. Instead, they gathered all the divine power in their bodies and launched an even fiercer and more domineering attack. Boom! It was as if the divine sea was overflowing the sky, and as if the Milky Way was pouring down. The vast world was filled with dazzling light everywhere. Endless divine brilliance was attacking, and the vast demonic power was surging. The demonic emperor's tomb seemed to be boiling. All the cultivators left that place and no one dared to stay. The 5 important figures attacked one after another, brandishing their weapons and clashing with the demonic emperor's ancient tomb. They made the sun, moon, and stars lose their radiance, and the entire world trembled. Boundless divine light and terrifying demonic power rushed out in all directions. After an unknown period of time, the 5 important figures didn't even know how many times they attacked, and only then did they manage to make a crack in a corner of the demonic emperor's tomb. Boom! They joined forces again and struck with a powerful attack. The 5 powerful weapons swallowed and spat out divine light, condensed the essence and divine power of the 5 important figures, and finally tore a corner of the demonic emperor's tomb. Chi. At this time, beams of light flew out from the torn corner of the demonic emperor's tomb, rushing out in all directions. There were spiritual weapons that had escaped by themselves. The 5 great figures reached out their hands, grasping at the skies. But there were still many beams of light that slipped through the net. They either soared into the horizon or submerged into the forest. At this time, the cultivators watching from afar all began to move. They rapidly flew in all directions, chasing into the skies or into the forests, chasing after those beams of light. Chi! A blue beam of light sunk into the mountain where Yi Fan was, easily piercing through the rock walls. This left Yi Fan startled. He never imagined that he would be able to obtain some harvest from hiding so far away. Bang! At this time, the 5 great figures joined forces once more. They brought out 5 powerful weapons and struck towards the demonic emperor's tomb. Chapter 63. A golden thread seeped out from Yi Fan's fingertip and cut open the cliff. Immediately, specks of green light flowed out and revealed half of the hilt. He grabbed it with his hand and forcefully pulled it out. Immediately, a green mist covered the ground, causing him to squint his eyes. Clang! This was a green dagger. When it was completely pulled out, it emitted a crisp metallic sound. Green mist lingered around it and it was incomparably sharp. It was no more than half a foot long and was like a pool of green water. It was sparkling and translucent, emitting waves of cold air. Yi Fan knew that this was not an ordinary item. A weapon kept by the demonic race emperor was certainly not ordinary. Haha! At this time, a fat Taoist with a ruddy complexion rushed over on a divine rainbow. Although he looked bloated, his movements were very agile. He landed silently like a falling leaf and said with a smile, "I'm so lucky. I didn't think I would really be able to chase after a spiritual weapon." Speaking up to here, he stretched out his hand and grabbed the dagger in Yi Fan's hand. He revealed a kind smile and said, "Child, this is a lethal weapon. You can't suppress it. Come, let this Tao Grandpa subdue it." Yi Fan really wanted to punch that fat face of his. This fat Taoist was too insincere. He was really treating him like a child. Yi Fan dodged backwards. The fat Taoist was very nimble. With a slight turn of his hand, he caught the dagger and laughed. "Child, I will remember this favor. The mountain doesn't turn but the road does. The next time we meet, this Tao Grandpa will properly thank you." After saying these words, the fat Taoist patted his butt and left. With a chi sound, he rode a divine rainbow and soared into the sky. "Damned fatty, I will remember you." Yi Fan cursed in a low voice and waved his fist at the sky. The spiritual weapon that was in his hands was actually snatched away like this. He was truly unwilling. "This Tao Grandpa isn't that fat. I'm just strong." This 30-year-old fat Taoist priest's ears were very sensitive. He had already flown more than 100 meters away, but he still heard Yi Fan's whisper. He turned around and revealed a mouthful of snow-white teeth. He smiled brilliantly and said, "The next time we meet, this Taoist grandpa will bring you good luck." Yi Fan saw that his spiritual sense was so sharp, so he didn't dare to make a sound. He rolled his eyes and watched the fat Taoist swagger away. There were indeed quite a few spiritual weapons that escaped from the Fiend Emperor's tomb. Multicolored light radiated in all directions as they rushed in all directions. Many cultivators rode on divine rainbows and continuously chased after them. The skies above these primitive ruins were filled with light and shadows. Just a few minutes later, another divine rainbow shot towards Yi Fan, giving him a huge fright. He hurriedly dodged. A scarlet cloud condensed together like a burning cloud and quickly rushed over, stabbing into the stone wall in front of it. Yi Fan was a little surprised. He felt that he was really lucky and was overjoyed. He had just extorted a dagger from that fat Taoist, and now, another weapon actually appeared in front of him. He vigilantly sized up the surroundings. Seeing that no one was passing by, his fingertips flickered with golden threads as he quickly cut open the stone wall and dug out a blood-colored pearl. Rays of scarlet light immediately shot out in all directions. Ha ha! A burst of laughter came over. In the distant sky, a fat Taoist was grinning so widely that his mouth almost reached his ears. He rode on a divine rainbow and rushed over. *CK. Yi Fan cursed in his heart. He grabbed the pearl that was surrounded by scarlet light and turned to run. This poor Taoist is indeed fated with little friend. I didn't expect to meet you so soon. The fat Taoist grinned very happily. With a swoosh, he landed in front of Yi Fan and blocked his path. He stretched out his fat hand and said with a beaming smile, "This poor Taoist is fated with this poor Taoist. Little friend, please lend it to me." "Taoist priest, you are too much of a bully." Yi Fan was extremely angry. He grabbed the pearl that was radiating multicolored light and retreated. He said, "You have already taken away one of my spiritual weapons. I cannot give this one to you." This pearl was transformed from a demon. "Little friend, you cannot suppress it. This poor Taoist is doing this for your own good. I have come to subdue it." The fat Taoist's face was flushed red. He stretched out his fat hand with a smile and received the red pearl with a swoosh. Yi Fan was so angry that even the roots of his teeth were itching. He said, "Taoist priest, didn't you say that when we meet again, you will bring me good luck and will properly thank me? Why are you stealing my things again? You have already obtained a dagger, so you should return this pearl to me." "That is incorrect. Little friend, do you still not understand?" The fat Taoist's face was full of smiles as he boasted shamelessly like a swindler. He said, "It is precisely because we formed a good karma the first time we met that we met again. This led to me rushing over to subdue this demonic pearl and helped you escape a misfortune. This is the fruit of your good karma." Hashtag at yen%yen hashtag. Yi Fan really had the urge to beat him up. He really wanted to leave a shoe print on that fat face. However, after thinking about this fat Taoist's unfathomable cultivation, he resisted this urge. "Boundless celestial being, little friend, we will meet again if fate allows it. This poor Taoist is leaving." The fat Taoist twisted his buttocks and rode a divine rainbow into the sky. With a swish, he disappeared without a trace. "Damned fatty, don't ever see me again in this life." Yi Fan's face was full of bad luck. He felt extremely annoyed. This heartless Taoist priest was truly too lacking in morals. Boom. In the distance, the 5 big shots attacked fiercely again. They used the powerful weapons in their hands to destroy the other corner of the demonic emperor's tomb. Immediately, multicolored light radiated in all directions as even more spiritual weapons rushed out. Even though the 5 great experts' divine might was matchless, they couldn't stop all the divine multicolored light that rushed into the sky. Many weapons escaped. The surrounding cultivators all revealed a joyful expression. They rode on divine rainbows and rushed in all directions to intercept those multicolored light. Yi Fan sat on the stone mountain gloomily and looked at the multicolored light shooting in all directions. He was helpless and muttered to himself, "This damned fatty heartless evil Taoist. I curse him to be robbed and not even his Taoist robe will be left behind." In the distant sky, a purple multicolored light rushed over like a flowing light and quickly entered the stone wall in front of him. Yi Fan widened his eyes in disbelief. There was actually a third spiritual weapon shooting over here. It was truly strange. This place. He faintly felt that there was something wrong with this stone wall. There was most likely something strange about this place. Otherwise, there wouldn't be such a coincidence in this world. How could there be spiritual weapons entering the same cliff one after another? This time Yi Fan didn't act rashly. Instead, he waited for a long time and only walked over slowly when he saw that there was no one passing by. He muttered to himself, "This time the damned fatty won't appear, right?" He carefully dug open the stone wall. Immediately, there were streams of intoxicating purple light flowing out and illuminating his palm until it was sparkling and translucent. Purple chi pervaded the air and made people feel very comfortable. It was actually a purple thumb ring with streams of purple multicolored light and thousands of auspicious colors. It was pleasing to look at. That heartless damn fatty. He swindled 2 of my treasures. Otherwise I would have already collected 3. Yi Fan was indignant and said, "I finally didn't get discovered by him this time. This poor Taoist is coming. Just as Yi Fan finished muttering to himself, a fat figure appeared again. His face was filled with a joyful smile and there were wrinkles on his forehead. His mouth was so wide that it reached his ears, and his molars were exposed. He laughed loudly and said, "Little friend and I are fated to meet." F***ck. Yi Fan's face turned green. He didn't expect that this fat Taoist would stick to him like dog skin plaster. He angrily said, "Only a ghost would be fated with you. You and I are really fated." The fat Taoist's face didn't turn red nor did his heartbeat increase. With a serious expression, he counted with his fingers and said, "You see, in such a short period of time, we have already met 3 times. How can you say that we are fated? This is heaven's will." "Heaven's will, your grandpa." Yi Fan raised his leg and wanted to kick his fat butt twice. However, after considering the difference in strength between them, he finally suppressed his anger. He walked to the side and shouted towards the sky, "Spiritual weapon." He forcefully threw the ring away. Even if it was snatched away by others, he didn't want this heartless Taoist to succeed. Otherwise he would definitely vomit blood from anger. The purple light streaked across the sky. The reaction speed of the fat Taoist priest didn't match his stature at all. With a whoosh, he rushed out. Before the purple jade ring could even fly 100 meters away, he had already caught it. Then he landed on the ground with a wide smile and said, "It's the will of the heavens, it's the will of the heavens." Yi Fan really wanted to vomit blood. This damn fatty was too despicable and shameless. He was purposely angering people. "Taoist, don't you think it's too much?" The veins on Yi Fan's forehead bulged. He said, "A monk should have some strength of character. A person can't be so greedy." This poor Taoist has always been self-disciplined. It's hard for external things to affect my fundamental heart. I constantly clean it, and my heart is like the divine moon shining in the sky. Seeing him act like a swindler, Yi Fan's forehead was full of black lines. He said, "Since you're so self-disciplined, return my item to me. A monk should be merciful. It's only because of the good karma between us that this poor Taoist spared no effort to resolve your calamity 3 times. I reluctantly used my stinky body to suppress the 3 great demons." The fat Taoist's face was full of benevolence. He looked very simple and honest. He chanted, "Immeasurable celestial being," and acted like an otherworldly expert. "You swindler." F***ck. Yi Fan clenched his teeth and said, "Taoist, what's your name?" "My name is Duanda. I'm Duanda." "No wonder you're so lacking in morals." Duanda, broken morals. You've obviously broken your morals. Chapter 64. Yi Fan walked to the side and cursed in a barely audible voice, "Damn fatty Duan, I curse you to have a son without an asshole. I am a Buddhist and will not marry or have children. You can even hear that." Yi Fan was a little scared of him now. "Tao Master Duan, you should leave quickly. You stole 3 of my treasures, are you still not satisfied?" "There is still some fate between us." The fat Taoist answered with a smile. "Surname Duan, you are going too far." Yi Fan's expression darkened as he walked down the mountain. He couldn't afford to provoke this heartless Taoist, so he had to leave. Fate brings us together and separates us. It seems like our fate has ended today, but it is hard to say what will happen in the future. Perhaps we will meet again. The fat Taoist laughed and didn't leave. He said, "Now I feel like I am fated to meet this stone wall, so I have decided to stay and take a look." Yi Fan was surprised. He didn't expect this heartless fatty to be so meticulous and notice the extraordinariness of this stone wall. He immediately stopped and didn't want to leave. "Since you are staying, I promise you that you will gain something. However, it is best if you don't touch too many dazzling treasures. I'm doing this for your own good. With your cultivation, you won't be able to protect your spiritual weapon. If someone covets it, then you will be in big trouble. Not everyone is as merciful as me. Many people try to steal spiritual weapons while trying to kill them. At that time, they might not even be able to keep their lives." At this moment, the 5 great experts in the distant sky unleashed an earth-shattering attack. Vast and immeasurable divine power poured down like the 9 heavens Milky Way. Energy waves swept through the entire sky like an ocean. At this moment, all the cultivators were shaking. Many of them couldn't control their rainbows and fell down from the sky. An indescribable sense of fear made it hard for people to breathe. This majestic pressure was impossible to resist. Many cultivators' souls were shaking uncontrollably. This was the terrifying power of these 5 characters. Once they displayed their prowess, all living beings were terrified and their hearts were in a state of panic. Boom. The final attack of the 5 supreme powerhouses finally shattered the Fey Emperor's tomb. A monstrous demonic aura erupted, wreaking havoc in all directions. The majestic ancient palace let out a rumbling sound and completely collapsed. At the same time, endless rays of light shot out in all directions. All the spiritual weapons buried in the ancient tomb rushed out. Among them, there were a few beams of light that were exceptionally dazzling. They illuminated the sky like little suns, and it was obvious that they were the most powerful spiritual treasures. The 5 top-notch experts each displayed their great divine abilities and reached out with their large hands. Almost every one of them grabbed one item and all of them revealed satisfied smiles. However, there were still a few spiritual weapons that were as dazzling as small suns that managed to escape their grasp. They soared into the sky and escaped. However, the pinnacle beings did not give chase. Instead, they remained in place and used their powerful divine senses to scan the surroundings, as if they were searching for something. The various spiritual weapons transformed into streaks of light and flew away. Vast and unfathomable waves of energy swept into the distant skies. All the cultivators went crazy. Disregarding the danger, they chased after the spiritual weapons in the endless brilliance, seizing those spiritual weapons. The Fey Emperor's tomb had completely collapsed. Even the rubble shot out in all directions. All that was left was a dazzling wave of energy. Where is the supreme treasure of the Eastern Wastelands humans? The weapon of the Monster Emperor is said to be no weaker than the supreme treasure of the Eastern Wastelands humans. How come it hasn't appeared? The 5 top-notch experts revealed puzzled expressions. They constantly scanned the area with their powerful divine senses. Boom. At this time, from the dazzling brilliance that hadn't dissipated yet, a beam of light that caused the sun, moon, and stars to lose their splendor suddenly rushed out. It was too dazzling, as if a sun had exploded. Even the 5 supreme powerhouses found it hard to open their eyes. Their eyes were pierced with pain, but they reacted quickly and immediately reached out with their hands. The divine light tore through the skies. It contained an incomparably powerful energy, as if a part of the universe was shaking. The terrifying fluctuations were vast and unfathomable, forcing the 5 great experts back and causing the weapons in their hands to instantly lose their luster. The dazzling divine light cut through the skies, creating terrifying energy fluctuations that caused many surrounding cultivators to fall from the skies. It emitted an incomparable demonic energy, as if the world was burning and nothing could stop it. This is the weapon that the Monster Emperor used when he was alive. It is comparable to the supreme treasure of the Eastern Wastelands humans. The 5 powerhouses came to their senses. 3 of them immediately chased after it. The other 2 didn't leave. They wanted to search for the legendary supreme treasure of the Eastern Wastelands humans. In the distance, Yifan was dumbfounded. This was because he discovered that the dazzling beam of light was rushing towards the stone mountain. The fat Taoist priest beside him rubbed his hands together, grinning incessantly. This Taoist is truly lucky. This Monster Emperor's weapon is no weaker than the supreme treasure of the Eastern Wastelands humans. If I can obtain it, will you be able to catch it? Yifan anxiously asked. The Monster Emperor's supreme treasure was about to reach them. If the fat Taoist priest couldn't catch it, then they would be crushed to pieces. If that happened, it would be far too tragic. That's right. This Taoist doesn't have such a great fortune. Even if I could catch it, I would still be slapped to death by the 3 great characters behind me. With that said, he pulled Yifan up, and with a whoosh he rushed to another mountain with a speed faster than a rabbit. The Monster Emperor's weapon shot out countless beams of divine light. The brilliance was so dazzling that it was impossible to see what it looked like. The blazing light made it hard for people to open their eyes. It was like billions of stars were burning at the same time, causing the entire world to violently tremble. With a loud bang, it slammed into the stone mountain. It's over. The fat Taoist priest repeatedly rubbed his hands. This is bad. There must be a strange treasure at the bottom of the stone mountain, but it can't withstand the impact of the Monster Emperor's supreme treasure. It will most likely turn into ashes. What a pity. That place was completely submerged by the light, turning into a vast ocean of energy. All the surrounding cultivators were sent flying away. Some people who were too close were directly crushed into pieces, turning into clouds of blood mist. However, at this time, something astonishing happened. The stone mountain collapsed and an incomparably gentle green light bloomed from within. Beams of green light shot into the sky. It was a very gentle and holy light, causing one's mind to feel calm. The faint green color was full of vitality, like an oasis floating in the sky. At this time, A giant green treasure basin rushed up from the ground and sucked in the Monster Emperor's supreme treasure. Immeasurable, that celestial being. At this moment, the fat Taoist priest couldn't even speak properly. He forcefully let out a breath and became normal again. He shouted, "It's the monster race's treasure basin. Someone hid there and prepared a treasure basin. What a good scheme, scheming for the monster race's supreme treasure." The fat Taoist instantly understood why the stone wall could attract spiritual weapons. There was actually a legendary treasure basin inside. Although that person had been suppressing the treasure basin with his divine power, he still managed to attract some spiritual weapons over. The treasure basin seemed to be carved out of green chalcedony. It was so green that it seeped into one's bones. It shone brilliantly and holy green light filled the sky. It was incomparably gentle and made one feel comfortable all over. At this moment, there was an extremely dazzling brilliance flickering in the treasure basin. It was the monster race's supreme treasure. The brilliance was boundless and extremely dazzling. It was impossible to see what exactly it looked like. It was constantly rotating in the treasure basin as if the universe was rotating. Not only was there a vast and immeasurable demonic power surging out, but there was also a blazing divine brilliance shooting out continuously. Yi Fan's heart trembled. The person standing in front of the treasure basin was peerless and peerless in beauty. It was actually the perfect woman he saw not long ago. At this moment she was ethereal and holy. She was still flawless and had a peerless appearance. She quickly put away the treasure basin and turned into a stream of light to fly away. Only a string of heavenly laughter was left behind. "Thank you, seniors, for your help. Otherwise, even if the Monster Emperor's descendant came personally, it would be difficult to truly obtain the Monster Emperor's supreme treasure." The three great characters that chased up to the front had cold expressions. They had carved many Tao patterns outside the Monster Emperor's tomb and condensed an extremely powerful heavenly power. Although they didn't stop the Monster Emperor's supreme treasure, they played a great role in slowing down its unstoppable impact. In the end, they allowed the person in the dark to reap the benefits. Otherwise, even if they controlled the legendary treasure basin, they wouldn't be able to take away the Monster Emperor's supreme treasure. The three great characters attacked at the same time, blasting towards the stream of light that was about to disappear into the horizon. This kind of attack was hard to block. Even they themselves found it hard to withstand it. A terrifying tsunami-like energy wave instantly swept over. The entire sky seemed to be burning and it was blinding. The surrounding cultivators were all incomparably frightened and quickly dodged. However, this powerful attack seemed to hit the void and didn't touch anything. Multicolored light rose and filled the sky. That woman flashed and disappeared, rushing into the gentle radiance and instantly vanishing. That little demon girl was already prepared. She carved a Tao pattern there and condensed a heavenly power to cross the void. I fear she's already thousands of miles away by now. The voices of the three great characters were ice cold. Someone had actually done something right under their noses, snatching food from the tiger's mouth and stealing away the Monster Emperor's supreme treasure. This was something they found hard to accept. Opening the Monster Emperor's tomb is easy, but wanting to stop the supreme treasure is difficult beyond difficult. I never imagined that we would actually help her. With a flash of light, the three great characters vanished from sight. They rapidly rushed towards the central region of the collapsed Monster Emperor's tomb because the legendary supreme treasure of the Eastern Wastelands had yet to be discovered. This was what they wanted the most. Why hasn't the supreme treasure of the Eastern Wastelands appeared?